The security guard's hands were already on her shoulders when Ethan Brooks made the stupidest decision of his life. He stood up in a room full of millionaires and said three words that would change everything. "She's with me." The woman they were dragging out looked like she'd walked through hell to get there. Soaked coat, ruined shoes, ice melting in her hair. Everyone else pretended not to see. Ethan saw everything. He didn't know her name, didn't know she was powerful enough to destroy him, didn't know his 8-year-old daughter was home waiting. He just knew wrong when he saw it. If you want to see where this story goes, stick around until the end and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. The Grand Orion Hotel didn't belong in Aspen. It belonged in some European capital where old money went to remind itself why it mattered. Ethan Brooks stood in the valet circle watching a woman in a fur coat step out of a Bentley, and he felt the same thing he'd felt 20 minutes ago pulling up in his 10-year-old Tacoma, the absolute certainty that he didn't belong here. "Mr. Brooks?" The valet was maybe 19, wearing a burgundy jacket that probably cost more than Ethan made in a week. "We'll take good care of her." Ethan almost laughed. His truck had a dent in the passenger door from where Lily had whacked it with her bike last summer. The check engine light had been on since October. "Yeah, thanks." He'd worn his only suit, charcoal gray, bought 6 years ago for a wedding he barely remembered. The pants were a little tight now. The jacket hung differently than it used to. Sarah used to tell him he cleaned up nice. Sarah used to tell him a lot of things. "Invitation, sir?" The doorman was older, professional. Probably saw 100 guys like Ethan every week. People who'd gotten invitations by accident or obligation, who showed up because someone told them networking mattered, who'd leave within an hour. Ethan handed over the embossed card. His boss had given it to him 3 days ago with a slap on the shoulder and a knowing grin. "Chamber of Commerce thing. Supposed to be good for business. Free food, open bar, bunch of rich folks pretending to care about charity. You should go." "I've got Lily." "Get a sitter. When's the last time you did something for yourself?" The answer was never, but Ethan didn't say that. He'd called Mrs. Chen from 2 floors down. She'd been watching Lily on and off for 3 years, ever since Sarah left. Since Sarah decided being a wife and mother in a small Colorado town wasn't the life she'd signed up for. Since she got in her Subaru with 2 suitcases and drove to Seattle without looking back. Inside, the Grand Orion swallowed him whole. The lobby opened into a ballroom that looked like something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling painted with clouds and angels. White marble floors reflected golden light. A string quartet played near a fountain made entirely of champagne glasses. Women in gowns that cost more than his rent moved like schools of tropical fish. Men in tuxedos stood in tight circles, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny. Ethan grabbed a glass of something from a passing waiter and found a corner. "First time?" The woman next to him was maybe 50, wearing emeralds that caught the light every time she moved. She had the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That obvious?" "You're standing like you expect someone to kick you out." She sipped her champagne. "Don't worry. They only do that if you can't prove you're supposed to be here. You can prove it, right?" "I run an auto shop in Garfield." Her smile tightened. "How interesting." She was gone in 30 seconds. Ethan checked his phone. Lily had texted him a photo of the pizza Mrs. Chen had ordered, pepperoni and olives, her favorite. The message said, "Having fun, Daddy says Mrs. Chen says you need to meet a nice lady tonight." He typed back, "Mrs. Chen talks too much. Be good. Love you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Okay, love you too, but seriously, Daddy, you need a girlfriend." 8 years old and already trying to fix his life. Ethan pocketed the phone and looked around the ballroom. His boss was wrong. This wasn't networking. This was theater. Everyone performing their wealth, their status, their importance. The charity part, some foundation for underprivileged kids, felt like an excuse. A way to feel good about spending $500 on a plate of food they'd barely touch. He was planning his exit strategy when the commotion started. Near the main entrance, voices rose above the quartet. Heads turned. The smooth surface of the evening cracked just enough to let something reel through. 2 security guards in black suits were walking a woman toward the door. Not walking, escorting. Their hands weren't on her yet, but the intention was clear. "Get out. You don't belong here." The woman wasn't fighting. She was just moving forward with them, her posture straight despite the fact that she was soaking wet. Her wool coat hung heavy with melted snow. Her dark hair was plastered to her skull. Her shoes, expensive once, ruined now, left wet prints on the marble. Around them, the gala continued its performance. Conversations picked up where they'd paused. Eyes that had turned to watch slid away with practiced indifference. The quartet never stopped playing. Ethan watched a man in a tuxedo literally turn his back when the woman passed within 3 feet of him. Something hot and familiar rose in his chest. He'd felt it before. The morning Sarah's lawyer called to say she wasn't coming back for Lily's birthday. The afternoon his landlord tried to evict the Ramirez family downstairs because their kid was too loud. Every time someone with power decided someone without it didn't matter. The security guards were 10 feet from the exit. Ethan set down his champagne and walked forward. He didn't think about it. Thinking would have stopped him. Thinking would have reminded him that he had a daughter at home who needed him to keep his job, keep his head down, not make waves in rooms full of people who could make problems for him. "Excuse me," his voice cut through the quartet, through the performed conversations, through the expensive pretending. The security guards stopped. The woman stopped. Half the ballroom stopped. Up close, she looked worse. Her coat wasn't just wet. It was torn at one shoulder. There was a bruise forming on her left cheekbone. Her eyes were dark, exhausted, but there was something else there too, something that hadn't broken yet. "She's with me." The larger guard, a guy built like he'd played college football before discovering protein powder, shook his head. "Sir, we've received complaints. This woman doesn't have credentials. She attempted to enter through a service entrance, and multiple guests have expressed concern. She's with me," Ethan said again. "I'm inviting her. Is that allowed?" The guard looked at his partner. The partner looked at someone across the room, probably whoever had called them in the first place. The woman stared at Ethan like he'd just grown a second head. "Sir, you don't understand." "I understand she's cold and wet, and you're about to throw her into a snowstorm." Ethan kept his voice level. "I'm saying she can sit with me, at my table, as my guest. If that's not allowed, then we'll both leave. But I'm pretty sure the charity doesn't care whose ass is in the chair as long as the donation clears." Silence spread like a stain. The smaller guard spoke into his radio, waited, listened to something Ethan couldn't hear. "Fine." He didn't sound happy about it. "But she's your responsibility. Any problems, you both go." "Fair enough." The guards walked away, already talking into their radios again, probably reporting to whoever had sent them in the first place. The woman stood there dripping on the marble. "Thank you." Her voice was quieter than he expected, controlled, like she was used to not showing what she felt. "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did." Ethan nodded toward the back of the ballroom. "I'm at table 17. It's near the kitchen doors. Nobody important, but it's warm and they keep bringing food nobody eats." She hesitated. Around them, the gala was remembering how to pretend nothing had happened. Conversations resumed. The quartet found its rhythm again. But people were watching. Ethan could feel their attention like static on his skin. "I'm Ethan Brooks." "Victoria?" She didn't offer a last name. "I'm looking for someone, a business partner. He was supposed to meet me here, but..." She gestured vaguely at herself. "Things went wrong. Looks like more than wrong. My car went off the road about 3 miles south. I walked." She said it matter-of-factly, like walking 3 miles through a Colorado blizzard in ruined shoes was just an inconvenience. "My phone died. When I got here, they wouldn't let me in without credentials." Ethan felt something shift in his chest. "You walked 3 miles in this?" She looked down at her destroyed shoes. "I had an important meeting." "Must have been really important." It was. Table 17 was exactly where Ethan said it would be, tucked in the back corner where the lighting was dimmer and the waiters forgot to check if anyone needed anything. His name card sat next to an empty seat. The centerpiece was smaller than the ones up front. Nobody had claimed the other 6 chairs. Victoria sat down carefully, like her whole body hurt. It probably did. A waiter appeared instantly. Young guy, maybe 20, with the glazed efficiency of someone working his 3rd double this week. He took in Victoria's appearance without blinking. "Can I get you anything, ma'am?" "Water, please, and..." She glanced at Ethan. "Whatever he's having." "I'm not having anything, but she should eat something." The waiter rattled off the dinner options. Ethan stopped understanding after pan-seared and reduction. Victoria ordered something. The waiter vanished. They sat in silence for 30 seconds. "You're staring," Victoria said. "You walked 3 miles through a blizzard." "I said that already. I'm still processing it." The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Most people in this room would have called an Uber. Most people in this room have never walked 3 miles in their lives." "You're not most people." "I run an auto shop in Garfield. I'm definitely most people." This time she did smile. Small, brief, but real. "The man who just told security to back off in a room full of Colorado's wealthiest donors isn't most people." Ethan shrugged. "They were being assholes." Still, the waiter returned with water in a glass so clean it looked invisible. Victoria drank half of it in one pull, and Ethan saw her hand shake slightly when she set it down. "When's the last time you ate?" "This morning, maybe. I had coffee." "Coffee's not food. Nutritionists disagree with you." "Nutritionists are wrong." She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound startled both of them. Around the ballroom, the gala continued its careful choreography. Speeches began. A woman in a silver gown walked to the podium and talked about children and opportunity and the importance of giving back. Ethan heard applause, saw people at the front tables lean forward attentively, performing interest the same way they'd performed everything else tonight. "Do you come to these often?" Victoria asked. "First time. My boss thought it'd be good for business. Meet people, make connections, all that." "Is it working?" "I've talked to you and a woman who looked at me like I'd crawled out of a dumpster, so no." "Which one am I?" "Haven't decided yet." The food arrived. Whatever Victoria had ordered looked like art, something carved and arranged and drizzled with sauce that probably had a French name. Ethan's plate, delivered without him ordering, looked the same. Victoria ate like someone who'd forgotten what hungry felt like until right now. Not fast, but focused, efficient. She finished half the plate before she seemed to remember Ethan was there. "Sorry, that was... You walked 3 miles in a blizzard. Eat." She studied him for a moment. "Why did you help me?" "Why wouldn't I? 300 people in this room. You were the only one who stood up." Ethan cut into something that might have been duck. "Maybe I'm the only one who's been on the other side of it." "Have you?" He thought about Sarah leaving, about the landlord who'd tried to evict them when Ethan was 2 weeks late on rent after Lily's hospital visit, about the school administrator who'd suggested maybe Lily would be better served at a different school because Ethan couldn't volunteer for every parent committee. "Yeah, I have." Victoria set down her fork. Outside, through the tall windows, snow fell in thick curtains. The storm that had sent her car off the road wasn't letting up. "What's your daughter's name?" Ethan looked up sharply. "How did you... You checked your phone 3 times since we sat down. Each time, you smiled before you saw whatever was on the screen. That's not email. That's not business. That's someone you're happy to hear from before you even know what they want." "Lily, she's 8. What's she like?" Nobody ever asked that. People asked how she was doing, if she was good in school, if Ethan needed help. Nobody asked what she was like. "She's..." Ethan stopped, started again. "She's stubborn, funny, too smart for her own good, obsessed with space, wants to be an astronaut one day, marine biologist the next. She makes me breakfast on Sundays and it's always terrible and I eat every bite. She thinks she's in charge of finding me a girlfriend. Is she right? About being in charge? Absolutely. Lily runs everything. About you needing a girlfriend." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Her mother left 3 years ago. Haven't really thought about it since. I'm sorry." "Don't be. Sarah did us both a favor. Better to know who's going to stay than wonder when they'll leave." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. "That's a hard way to see the world. It's an honest way. Maybe both." The speeches were winding down. Applause rippled through the front tables. Ethan saw people checking their phones, preparing for the next phase of the evening. The part where they'd migrate to the bar, form new clusters, continue the networking that was the real purpose of being here. "Who were you supposed to meet?" Ethan asked. Victoria's expression shuddered, back to controlled. "A potential investor, someone who could have changed the trajectory of my company." "What kind of company?" "The kind that people either love or want to destroy. Usually both." She picked up her water glass, set it down without drinking. I've been CEO for 4 years. Built it from nothing. Every step, someone's told me I was too young, too inexperienced, too female. Every success, someone's tried to take credit or take over. Sounds exhausting. It is. Why do it? Do. She looked at him like he'd asked why she breathed. Because it's mine. Because I'm good at it. Because... She stopped, laughed without humor. Because if I don't, someone else will. And they'll do it worse. Ethan understood that. The weight of being the only thing standing between the world and disaster. He felt it every time Lily asked him if Mommy was coming back. Every time he had to be both parents, both safety nets, both everything. The person you were meeting, he said. They stood you up? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe they saw the weather and decided it wasn't worth the drive. Maybe they found a better offer. Maybe... Victoria pressed her fingers to her temples. It doesn't matter. I failed. I wrecked my car, lost my phone, showed up looking like I crawled out of a drainage ditch, and got security called on me. Not exactly the power move I was planning. You walked 3 miles through a blizzard because you made a commitment. Most people would have turned around. Most people have better survival instincts. Maybe. Or maybe they just don't care enough. Something cracked in her expression. Just for a second, Ethan saw past the control, past the exhaustion, to something raw underneath. I care, she said quietly. Sometimes I think I care too much. About the company, about doing it right, about proving... She shook her head. Sorry, you didn't sign up for a therapy session. I told security you were with me. I think I signed up for whatever comes with that. She smiled. Sad, but real. You're a good person, Ethan Brooks. I'm really not. I'm just tired of watching people get thrown away. They sat in silence while the ballroom continued its transformation. The dinner portion was ending. The networking portion was beginning. Ethan saw his boss across the room, deep in conversation with a man in a tuxedo that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. He should have been over there, making connections, being useful. He stayed where he was. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. Why are you here? Really? Ethan considered lying, saying the thing about networking, about business, about all the rational reasons people went to events they hated. Instead, he told her the truth. My daughter thinks I need to get out more. My boss thinks I need to act more professional. I think... He paused. I think I came because someone told me to, and it was easier than explaining why I didn't want to. And do you? Want to be here? He looked around the ballroom, at the performed wealth, the careful status games, the hundreds of people pretending their money made them matter. Then he looked at Victoria, at the woman who'd walked 3 miles through hell for a meeting, who'd let herself be humiliated at the door rather than make a scene, who was sitting here in a ruined coat talking to a mechanic from Garfield like he was worth her time. Right now? He said. Yeah, I do. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then the ballroom fell silent. Not the comfortable silence of a moment between songs. The sharp silence of something breaking. Ethan turned and saw them coming. A group of 6, maybe 7 people moving through the crowd like a wave. At the center was a man Ethan vaguely recognized. Silver hair, expensive tan. The kind of confidence that came from never being told no. Behind him, younger versions of the same thing. Suits and gowns and smiles that didn't quite hide the calculation underneath. They were heading straight for table 17. Victoria saw them and went absolutely still. Her hand tightened around her water glass. Do you know them? Ethan asked. Yes? Friends? No. The silver-haired man reached their table first. Up close, he looked like money that had aged well. Lean, polished, preserved by expensive doctors and better lawyers. His smile was white and sharp. Victoria Hale. His voice carried across the back of the ballroom. When they said you were here, I didn't believe them. Victoria stood slowly. Ethan stood with her, not sure what else to do. Mr. Westfield. Please, we've known each other too long for formality. Westfield's eyes slid to Ethan, dismissed him, came back to Victoria. Though I have to say, I didn't expect to see you at a charity function. Thought you'd be too busy running that little company of yours. The insult was wrapped in silk, but it was still an insult. Hale International isn't little anymore. No, I suppose not. Though these things have a way of fluctuating, don't they? His smile never wavered. I heard about your meeting tonight. Such a shame when things don't work out. Victoria's expression didn't change, but Ethan saw her shoulders tighten. What meeting? Ethan asked. Westfield looked at him like he'd just noticed a stain on the carpet. I'm sorry, I don't believe we've been introduced. Ethan Brooks. Charmed. Westfield clearly wasn't. Are you in finance? Tech? Development? I fix cars. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. One of the younger men behind Westfield actually laughed. Short, sharp, mean. Victoria's voice cut through it. Ethan was kind enough to invite me to sit with him after security attempted to remove me. Ah. Westfield nodded like that explained everything. Well, that was very charitable of you, Mr. Brooks. Though I'm sure Miss Hale is quite capable of finding her own seat now. In fact, he gestured to the front of the ballroom. There's an open chair at table 3. Much better view of the stage. Much better company. It wasn't an invitation. It was a claim. Ethan felt anger bloom hot in his chest. He'd seen this before. Different rooms, different players, same game. The people with power moving the people without it around like furniture. He opened his mouth to tell Westfield exactly where he could shove his table 3. Victoria spoke first. Thank you, but I'm comfortable where I am. Westfield's smile tightened at the edges. Victoria, be reasonable. There are people here you should meet, opportunities you should consider. Sitting in the back with... He waved vaguely at Ethan. Well, it sends a certain message. What message is that? That you're not serious. That Hale International is a vanity project, not a real company. Hale International generated $42 million in revenue last year. We employ over 300 people across 4 states. We've disrupted 3 major markets, and we're expanding into 2 more. Victoria's voice never rose, but every word landed like a hammer. If you think that's a vanity project, Mr. Westfield, then perhaps you should reconsider your definition of serious. The young man who'd laughed wasn't laughing anymore. Westfield's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. This attitude, this defiance. It won't serve you in the long run. I'll take my chances. Will you? Westfield leaned in slightly. Because from where I'm standing, you look like a woman who just crashed her car, lost a major investor, and is clinging to a stranger at the worst table in the room. That's not strength, Victoria. That's desperation. Ethan moved before he thought, just a half step forward, putting himself slightly between Victoria and Westfield. I think she said she was comfortable. Westfield's eyes flickered to him, cold, assessing, finding him wanting. Mr. Brooks, this is a private conversation between colleagues. I'd appreciate... She's sitting at my table. That makes it my business. Someone in the group behind Westfield muttered something. Ethan caught the word mechanic and the tone that came with it. Westfield sighed like he was dealing with a toddler. I'm trying to help her. You're not doing her any favors by encouraging this stubbornness. She doesn't look like she needs help. Appearances can be deceiving. Yeah, Ethan said. They can. For a long moment, Westfield just stared at him. Then his smile came back, colder than before. Enjoy your evening, Miss Hale. I'm sure you'll find the view from the back enlightening. He turned to leave, paused. Oh, and do give your father my regards. We haven't spoken in months. I should call him, catch up on old times. It was a threat dressed as courtesy, and everyone knew it. Then they were gone, flowing back into the main crowd like sharks returning to deeper water. Victoria sat down slowly. Her hands were shaking. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For that? For making you a target. Westfield is... She stopped. He's dangerous, vindictive, and now he knows your name. So? So he'll remember it. He'll look you up, and if he decides you're a problem, he'll find ways to make your life difficult. Ethan sat down across from her. Let him try. You don't understand. He has resources, connections. He could... What? Tank my auto shop? I've got 12 customers and half of them pay in cash. He could burn the place down and I'd still be fine. Ethan leaned forward. But you, what was that about an investor? Victoria closed her eyes. The meeting tonight. The person I was supposed to see. It was going to be a major funding round, $40 million. Enough to expand, to secure our position, to finally stop fighting fires and start building something sustainable. And? And Westfield got to them first. I don't know how. I don't know what he offered, but they canceled this afternoon, 2 hours before I left. Her voice cracked. I came anyway. I thought maybe I could salvage it. Maybe if I showed up, if I made my case in person. You drove through a blizzard for a meeting that was already dead. Yes. And you didn't turn around. No. Ethan sat back. Across the ballroom, the gala was hitting its peak. Laughter and conversation and the clink of expensive glasses. Nobody looking their way, nobody caring. He's wrong, Ethan said. About what? About you being desperate. You're not desperate. You're just the only one still fighting. Victoria opened her eyes. They were wet, but she wasn't crying. My father used to play golf with Westfield, back when I was a kid. They were friends. Then Dad started Hale International in Westfield. She shook her head. He wanted to invest, to be a partner. Dad said no. Told him he wanted to build something himself, without shortcuts. Westfield never forgave him. And now he's coming after you. He's been coming after me since I took over. Every contract, every expansion, every hire. If there's a way to make it harder, he finds it. Because I'm my father's daughter. Because I won't bow. Good. She looked at him. Good? You don't bow to people like that. You bow once, they own you forever. Even if it costs you everything? Ethan thought about Sarah, about the choice she'd given him 3 years ago, move to Seattle, give up the shop, become someone he wasn't, or let her go. Yeah, he said. Even then. They sat in silence while the ballroom spun around them, while Westfield held court at table 3, while people laughed and drank and pretended the world was exactly what they wanted it to be. Ethan's phone buzzed. Lily. Mrs. Chen says I have to go to bed soon, but I wanted to say goodnight first. He smiled and typed back. Good night, kiddo. Love you to the moon. Love you to Mars. That's farther. I know. When he looked up, Victoria was watching him. She's lucky, Victoria said. I'm the lucky one. No, trust me. I know what it's like to have a parent who cares more about their company than their kid. Lily has you. That's luck. Before Ethan could respond, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. People pulled out phones. Ethan saw Westfield stand up at table 3, saw him smile. Then he saw Victoria's face drain of color. What? He asked. She was staring at her borrowed phone. One of the waiters had lent it to her earlier. Her hand shook. They know. Who knows what? Everyone. She turned the phone toward him. On the screen was a social media post. A photo of Victoria sitting at table 17, her ruined coat still dripping, her hair still wet. The caption read, CEO of Hale International slumming at tonight's charity gala. Is this desperation or a cry for help? Below it, comments were already piling up. Oh God, Victoria whispered. They know who I am. And that's when the room changed. It happened fast. Like a switch flipping. People who'd ignored them all night suddenly couldn't stop staring. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Phones came out everywhere. Westfield was walking back toward their table, and this time he wasn't alone. He'd brought the whole room with him. The shift happened in waves. First came the whispers, spreading through the ballroom like wildfire through dry grass. Then the stares, no longer pretending to be polite. Then the movement, a slow migration toward table 17, as if Victoria had suddenly become magnetic and everyone else was made of iron. Ethan watched it happen with a sick feeling in his stomach. 5 minutes ago, these people wouldn't have looked twice at their corner. Now they were circling like vultures who'd just spotted something dying. Miss Hale! A woman in a crimson gown materialized at Victoria's elbow. Jennifer Ashford, we met last year at the Tech Summit in Denver. I've been following Hale International's growth, and I have to say it's truly impressive. Victoria's face was a mask. Thank you. I'd love to set up a meeting, compare notes. We're doing some fascinating work in the sustainable energy sector, and I think there could be some real synergy. Victoria, a man in his 40s, balding, overeager. Tom Richardson, Richardson Capital. I've been trying to reach your office for weeks. Listen, I know you're in the middle of a funding round, and I want you to know we're very interested. Another voice cut in. Miss Hale, Marcus Chen, Chen Ventures. Do you have a card? I'd love to discuss potential partnership opportunities. They kept coming. A flood of handshakes and business cards and smiles that looked like they'd been stamped from the same mold. Every single one of them had ignored Victoria an hour ago. Every single one of them had walked past while security dragged her toward the exit. Now they acted like she was the only person in the room. Ethan stood up. Nobody noticed. He was furniture again, invisible. The mechanic who'd briefly interrupted the natural order before the universe corrected itself. Victoria caught his eye across the growing crowd. There was something desperate in her look. Not scared, she didn't look scared, but trapped, like she was drowning in shallow water. "Excuse me," Ethan's voice cut through the noise. "She's trying to eat." Jennifer Ashford glanced at him the way you'd glance at a waiter who'd spoken out of turn. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Nobody." Ethan met her eyes, which is what all of you thought she was 20 minutes ago. The circle went quiet. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Tom Richardson said carefully. "We're simply trying to, network." "Yeah, I got it." Ethan looked around at the faces. Some embarrassed, some annoyed, none of them ashamed. "Funny how that works. She shows up wet and alone and you can't get security here fast enough. Then someone posts a photo with her name on it and suddenly everybody's best friends." "Young man, I don't think you understand how these events work." "You're right, I don't. Where I'm from, we don't wait until someone's successful to treat them like a human being." Marcus Chen's expression hardened. "That's quite enough. Miss Hale is perfectly capable of what? Telling you all to go to hell?" Ethan looked at Victoria. "You want them here?" She stood slowly. The crowd parted slightly, giving her room. When she spoke, her voice was level, professional, empty of everything except control. "Thank you all for your interest. If you'd like to discuss business opportunities, please contact my office and we'll schedule something appropriate." She picked up her ruined coat from the back of her chair. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to arrange for a car." "I can give you a ride," Jennifer Ashford offered immediately. "I have a driver. We have a helicopter on standby," Tom Richardson interrupted. "Weather permitting, of course." "My firm has an account with every car service in the state," Marcus Chen said. "Whatever you need." Victoria looked at Ethan. Something passed between them, an understanding that needed no words. "Actually," she said, "I already have a ride." The crowd turned to stare at Ethan like he'd just announced he was kidnapping her. "You're leaving with him?" Jennifer Ashford's tone suggested Victoria had announced she was leaving with a homeless person, which Ethan thought was probably how she saw him. "Yes, but we haven't even had a chance to—" "My office will be in touch." Victoria was already moving toward the exit. Ethan followed. Behind them, the crowd stood frozen in confusion and poorly hidden outrage. Westfield's voice carried across the ballroom. "Careful, Victoria. The company you keep reflects on the company you run." She didn't stop, didn't turn around, just kept walking. They made it to the lobby before Victoria's composure cracked. Not completely. She was too good for that. But Ethan saw her hands shaking when she tried to button her coat, saw her jaw clench, saw the exhaustion that had been hiding behind professionalism finally show itself. "I need to—" She stopped, started again. "Can I borrow your phone?" Ethan handed it over, watched her dial a number from memory, wait through 3 rings, then hang up when it went to voicemail. "No answer?" "My assistant. She's probably asleep. It's almost 11. Victoria pressed her fingers to her temples. "My car is totaled. My phone is dead. I don't even know where I am exactly. What town is this?" "Aspen." "Right. Aspen." She laughed, but it sounded wrong. Brittle. "I drove 3 hours through a storm to get humiliated by security, patronized by sharks, and photographed at my lowest point. Best business decision I've made all year." "You want to sit down?" "No, I want to go home. I want to forget this night ever happened. I want—" She stopped, breathed. "I'm sorry. You've been nothing but kind, and I'm taking it out on you. You walked 3 miles in a blizzard and got ambushed by every vulture in Colorado. You're allowed to be pissed." "I'm not pissed. I'm—" Victoria looked at him, really looked at him. "I don't know what I am." Outside, the snow was still falling. The valet circle was empty except for a Bentley and a Tesla and Ethan's beat-up Tacoma, sitting between them like a relative nobody wanted to claim. "Where do you live?" Ethan asked. "Denver, Cherry Creek." That's 2 hours in good weather. I know. Roads are going to be a nightmare. I know that too. Ethan pulled out his phone and checked the weather. The storm wasn't supposed to break until morning. Interstate 70 was showing delays, accidents near Georgetown, chain requirements on the passes. He thought about Lily at home with Mrs. Chen, thought about the drive back to Garfield, 30 minutes on clear roads, probably an hour tonight. Thought about Victoria trying to make it to Denver in a car that had seen better days, with no phone and no backup plan. He made a decision he knew he'd regret. There's a hotel 2 blocks from here. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and they'll have rooms. He held up a hand before she could protest. I'm not suggesting anything weird. I'm suggesting you sleep somewhere warm and dry instead of dying on I-70 because you're too stubborn to admit tonight was a disaster. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then, what about you? I'll head home. My daughter's waiting. In this weather? I've driven worse. That's not an answer. Ethan shrugged. I've got 4-wheel drive and chains in the back. I'll be fine. She studied him with an expression he couldn't read. You're going to drive an hour through a blizzard because you don't want to leave your daughter alone. Mrs. Chen's with her, but yeah. And you're trying to convince me not to drive 2 hours through the same blizzard. You don't have 4-wheel drive. You don't know that. Do you? Victoria smiled despite herself. No. They stood in the lobby while hotel guests moved around them. A couple in formal wear arguing about which restaurant to try. A family with 3 kids, all under 10, the parents looking like they'd aged a decade since checking in. A businessman on his phone pacing, his voice sharp with frustration. Normal people, living normal lives, not performing wealth or status or importance, just existing. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. Why did you really come tonight? I told you, my boss. No, the real reason. She turned to face him fully. You don't care about networking. You don't care about impressing anyone. You spent the whole night in the back corner avoiding people. So why show up at all? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he told her something he'd never told anyone. Not his boss, not Mrs. Chen, not even Lily. Because Sarah used to say I was too small town, too limited, that I didn't want anything bigger than my shop and my routines and my safe little life. He looked down at his worn suit. She was probably right, but every now and then I make myself do something uncomfortable just to prove I still can, even if it's pointless, even if I hate it. Victoria's expression softened. That's not pointless. Feels like it. It's not. She hesitated. My father used to say the same thing about me, that I was too comfortable, that I'd inherited a company but never built anything myself, that I was playing CEO instead of being one. Was he right? I don't know. Maybe. Victoria looked toward the exit, toward the snow and the dark beyond. 4 years I've been running Hale International. 4 years of 18-hour days and missed birthdays and relationships that died because I couldn't stop working long enough to water them. And tonight, I got to watch a room full of people treat me like garbage until they found out I was worth paying attention to. That bother you? It should. It should make me angry. But mostly it just makes me tired. She pulled her coat tighter. I'm 30 years old and I can't remember the last time someone talked to me like a person instead of a transaction. Until tonight. Until you. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. The valet appeared with a nervous smile and Ethan's keys. Your truck, sir. Thanks. Ethan took the keys, then looked at Victoria. The hotel's called the Alpine Lodge, 2 blocks west. Tell them you need a room and you'll pay in the morning. They'll grumble, but they'll do it. How do you know? Because they did it for me once. 3 years ago, right after Sarah left. He didn't elaborate. Didn't explain the night he'd driven Lily around for 4 hours because she wouldn't stop crying and he couldn't stand being in their apartment alone. Didn't explain how he'd pulled into the Alpine Lodge parking lot at 2 a.m, and the night clerk had taken one look at him and handed over a key without asking questions. Victoria reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a business card that had somehow survived the walk. It was bent and water-stained but still readable. That's my direct line. Not my assistant. Me. She pressed it into his hand. I know you don't want anything from me. I know you helped because you're a good person, and that's what good people do. But if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call that number. Ethan looked at the card. Simple black text on white stock. Victoria Hale, CEO, Hale International. A phone number, an email address. Nothing flashy. I won't call. I know, but take it anyway. He pocketed the card. They stood there in the warm lobby while snow piled up outside and the night got later and reality started pressing back in. Thank you, Victoria said quietly, for standing up when everyone else sat down, for treating me like I mattered when I looked like I didn't, for her voice caught, for reminding me that not everyone keeps score. Take care of yourself, Victoria. You too, Ethan. He walked out into the snow. The cold hit him like a wall. Behind him, through the glass doors, he could see Victoria still standing in the lobby. She looked small and alone and so tired he wanted to turn around and tell her to forget Denver, forget the hotel, forget everything and just rest. But he didn't. He got in his truck and started the engine and pulled out of the circle. In his rearview mirror, Victoria was already walking toward the exit, toward the Alpine Lodge, toward a night of sleep she probably wouldn't get because her mind wouldn't stop running. Ethan drove. The roads were worse than he expected. Snow piled up in drifts across the highway. Other cars crept along at 20 miles an hour. His windshield wipers couldn't keep up with the accumulation, but the Tacoma held the road and the chains gave him traction, and after 40 minutes of white-knuckle driving, he saw the Garfield exit. Home. The apartment was dark except for one lamp in the living room. Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch, her knitting in her lap. The TV played an old movie with the sound off. Ethan touched her shoulder gently. Mrs. Chen. She woke instantly, the way old people did. Ethan, you're home. Sorry I'm late. The storm. I saw. She stood, gathering her knitting. Lily went down at 9, brushed her teeth, said her prayers, read her book. Ethan smiled. Lily didn't pray, and they both knew it, but Mrs. Chen liked to pretend. Thank you for everything. Did you meet anyone nice? Mrs. Chen had that look in her eye, the one that said she was about to suggest introducing him to her niece or her friend's daughter, or literally anyone female and breathing. I met someone, but it's complicated. Complicated is better than nothing. It's literally nothing, Mrs. Chen. She patted his arm. We'll see. After she left, Ethan checked on Lily. She was buried under her space-themed comforter, her stuffed astronaut tucked under one arm. Her nightlight, shaped like Saturn, cast soft shadows on the walls. He watched her breathe for a minute. This small person who trusted him completely, who believed he could fix anything, who had no idea how close they'd come to losing everything when Sarah left. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Ethan. It's Victoria. Her voice was quiet, careful. I hope I'm not calling too late. How'd you get my number? Your boss's contact information was on the gala guest list. I called and explained the situation. He was surprisingly helpful once I mentioned Hale International. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Yeah, he would be. I'm at the hotel. You were right. They grumbled, but they gave me a room. Good. Silence. Not awkward, just there. I wanted to say thank you again, Victoria said. I know I already did, but I meant it. Tonight was... She stopped. It could have been so much worse. You okay? Honestly? No. I'm in a hotel room in a town I don't know, wearing a bathrobe that smells like bleach, and tomorrow I have to figure out how to get back to Denver without a car or a phone. But I'm not standing in the snow, so better than the alternative. You need help getting back? No. I called my assistant from the hotel phone. She's driving up in the morning. Victoria paused. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. That thing you said about not keeping score, do you really believe that? Ethan thought about it. About Sarah leaving, about the landlord who tried to screw him, about every time someone with power had used it to make his life harder. I believe most people keep score, he said carefully. And I believe the world usually rewards them for it, but I also believe there's got to be another way to live. Otherwise, what's the point? The point is survival. That's not living. That's just not dying. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, more real. I've spent 4 years keeping score. Every slight, every betrayal, every person who tried to take what I built. I remember all of it, and I've told myself that's strength. That's how you survive in a world like this. Maybe it is. But tonight, sitting at that table with you, I forgot to keep score. For an hour, I just talked to someone who didn't want anything from me, and it felt... She stopped. It felt like I could breathe. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know what she wanted him to say. Get some sleep, Victoria. Will I see you again? The question hung in the air between them. Honest, vulnerable, dangerous. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because you're a CEO in Denver, and I'm a mechanic in Garfield. Because we live in different worlds, and tonight was... Ethan searched for the right word. Tonight was an accident, a moment, not something that continues. What if I want it to continue? You don't. You just think you do because tonight was awful and I was nice, but tomorrow you'll get back to your life and remember that I don't fit in it. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. I was married to someone who figured that out. I'm not doing it again. Victoria was quiet, then, okay. Okay? You're probably right. We're too different. Tonight was a moment, not a beginning. Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something that sounded like disappointment. Thank you for being honest. Victoria. Good night, Ethan. Take care of yourself and that daughter of yours. She hung up before he could respond. Ethan stood in Lily's doorway holding his phone and feeling like he'd just done something right and wrong at the same time. He'd been honest. He'd protected himself and Lily from the inevitable heartbreak of getting involved with someone whose life would never make room for theirs. So why did it feel like he just slammed a door on something that mattered? He went to his own room, changed out of the suit, hung it in the back of the closet, where it would probably stay for another 6 years, lay down in bed and stared at the ceiling. His phone sat on the nightstand, silent. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, Lily was already awake and making breakfast when Ethan stumbled into the kitchen. She had eggs going in a pan, too much butter, heat too high, and toast burning in the toaster. Morning, Daddy. Morning, kiddo. What's all this? You looked tired when you got home last night. I heard you, so I thought I'd make breakfast. Ethan's heart did something complicated in his chest. You didn't have to do that. I know, but I wanted to. Lily flipped the eggs. One of them broke. She frowned. Mrs. Chen makes it look easier. Mrs. Chen's been making eggs since before we were born. That's really old. Don't tell her that. They ate together at the small kitchen table. The eggs were overdone and the toast was carbon, but Ethan finished every bite. Lily watched him with those eyes that saw too much. Did you meet anyone last night? A few people? Any ladies? One. Lily's eyes lit up. Is she nice? Very nice. Is she pretty? Lily. What? I'm just asking. She took a bite of toast, grimaced at the taste, kept eating anyway. Mrs. Chen says you need someone. Mrs. Chen says a lot of things. But is she right? Ethan looked at his daughter, 8 years old and already trying to fix problems that weren't hers to fix. Already trying to make sure he was happy, even though her own mother had walked away. I'm okay, Lily. I promise. But you could be better than okay. Maybe. But okay is pretty good. She didn't look convinced. Ethan's phone rang. He checked the screen. His boss. I need to take this. Lily nodded and started clearing plates. This is Ethan. Brooks. Marcus here? Just got the most interesting call. His boss sounded amused. Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale International, called my personal line at 7 in the morning asking about one of my mechanics. Ethan closed his eyes. She needed a number. That's what she said. Also said you helped her out last night when things went sideways. Marcus paused. Want to tell me what that means? Security tried to throw her out. I told them she was with me. And then? And then nothing. We talked. She left. End of story. Funny, because she also asked if you were available for consulting work. Said Hale International is opening a new facility in Boulder, and they need someone who understands fleet maintenance. 50 vehicles, good contract, 6 months minimum. Ethan's brain stopped working for a second. What? She asked about you specifically, said you came highly recommended. By who? By her, apparently. Marcus was definitely amused now. So what'd you do, Brooks? Fix her car, rescue her dog, propose marriage? I let her sit at my table. Must have been some table. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I can't take the contract. Why the hell not? Because it was pity. Because Victoria felt guilty. Because taking money from her would turn last night into a transaction, and that was the one thing it wasn't. Because I've got enough work here. You've got 12 customers and half of them are 2 months behind on payments. This is a real contract with a real company. You'd be stupid to turn it down. Then I'm stupid, Marcus sighed. At least think about it. She left a number, said to call if you're interested. After he hung up, Ethan sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing. Lily appeared in the doorway. What's wrong? Nothing. You're lying. Your face does this thing when you lie. She demonstrated, scrunching her forehead. I don't do that. You totally do. Ethan smiled despite himself. Someone offered me a job. A good one. So take it. It's complicated. Why? Because the person offering it is the lady I met last night, and I think she's doing it because she feels bad, not because she actually needs my help. Lily sat down across from him. Did she say that? No. Then maybe she really does need help. Or maybe she's just being nice. What's wrong with nice? Ethan looked at his daughter, at her honest eyes and her simple logic and her complete inability to understand why adults made everything so complicated. Nothing's wrong with nice. Then call her. It's not that simple. It is, though. Either you want the job or you don't. Either she needs help or she doesn't. The rest is just you being scared. I'm not scared. You are. You're scared she's going to be like Mom, leave when things get hard. Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, not accusing, just stating truth. But you can't know that until you try. Sometimes Ethan forgot how smart she was, how much she understood even when he tried to hide it from her. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't listen. He pulled Victoria's business card out of his wallet, looked at it, thought about calling, thought about what he told her last night, that they lived in different worlds, that this was a moment, not a beginning. He put the card back. 3 days passed. The snow melted. Life returned to normal. Ethan fixed Mrs. Patterson's Civic and Mr. Rodriguez's pickup and the Murphy family's van that wouldn't start. He picked Lily up from school and made dinner and helped with homework and fell into bed exhausted every night. He didn't call Victoria. On the 4th day, she called him. Don't hang up, she said immediately. I wasn't going to. Good, because I have something to say, and you're going to listen. Victoria's voice had the CEO tone now. Professional, no nonsense. My offer is real. The contract is real. I'm not offering it because I feel guilty or because I'm trying to repay you. I'm offering it because Hale International actually needs fleet maintenance, and your boss says you're the best mechanic in Garfield County. He's lying. He showed me your safety record, your turnaround times, your customer retention. You're good at what you do. That's not charity. That's a fact. Ethan didn't say anything. I understand if you are not interested, Victoria continued. I understand if you think I'm overstepping or trying to buy your friendship or whatever story you've told yourself. But I'm asking you to consider the possibility that I'm just a CEO who needs a good mechanic and you're just a mechanic who might want a bigger client. Nothing more complicated than that. Victoria, think about it. The offer's open for another week. After that, I move on to the next candidate. She paused. But I'd rather work with you. Why? Because you're honest. Because you showed up when everyone else walked away. Because I think you're better than you give yourself credit for. Her voice softened slightly. And because I'd like to believe that night wasn't just a moment, that maybe it could be the start of something real. She hung up before he could respond. Ethan stood in his garage holding his phone, covered in grease, surrounded by broken cars and old tools, and the evidence of a life that worked but didn't shine. Lily appeared in the doorway. Was that her? Yeah. What'd she say? That the job offer is real. So take it. You keep saying that like it's simple. It is simple. You're the one making it hard. Lily walked over and looked up at him with those eyes that were too smart for 8 years old. Mom left because she wanted something different, not because you weren't enough. You know that, right? Ethan's throat tightened. Lily, you're scared everyone's going to leave like she did, but they won't. Not if they're the right people. She took his hand. And maybe this lady is the right people. Maybe she's not, but you won't know unless you try. Ethan pulled his daughter into a hug, felt her small arms wrap around him, felt the weight of responsibility and love and fear all tangled together. When did you get smarter than me? Last year, you just noticed. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Victoria's business card in front of him. He thought about calling, about saying yes, about taking a chance on something that might be real or might be a disaster. He thought about Sarah driving away. He thought about Victoria walking through a blizzard. 2 different women, 2 different kinds of strength, 2 different endings. He picked up the phone and dialed before he could change his mind. Victoria answered on the second ring. Ethan, I'll take the contract on one condition. Name it. You tell me the truth. Is this about the work or about that night? She was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? Yeah, both. I do need a fleet mechanic. That part's real, but I could have hired anyone. I chose you because... She stopped, started again. Because that night reminded me that there are still people in the world who do the right thing without calculating the cost. And I want more of that in my life, even if it's just professional. Just professional. For now. If that's all you're comfortable with. Ethan closed his eyes, took a breath, jumped. Okay. When do I start? He could hear the smile in her voice. How's next Monday? Monday came faster than Ethan expected. He spent the weekend explaining to Lily why he'd be working in Boulder 2 days a week, rearranging his schedule with his existing customers, and ignoring the voice in his head that kept saying he was making a mistake. Mrs. Chen offered to watch Lily on the Boulder days. It's good, she said, patting his arm. You need to see more of the world than Garfield. I've seen the world. You've seen Garfield and sometimes Aspen. That's not the world. The drive to Boulder took 90 minutes. Ethan left at 5 in the morning, the Tacoma's headlights cutting through darkness that hadn't quite decided to become dawn. His toolbox rattled in the back. His coffee went cold in the cup holder. And with every mile, the knot in his stomach pulled tighter. The Hale International facility sat on the eastern edge of Boulder, a modern building of glass and steel that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought buildings should make statements. The parking lot held maybe 40 vehicles, vans, trucks, a few sedans, all white with the Hale International logo printed on the side in bold blue letters. Ethan pulled into a visitor spot and sat there for a minute, engine running, hands on the wheel. His phone buzzed. Lily. Good luck, Daddy. You got this. He smiled despite his nerves and typed back. Thanks, kiddo. Love you. Love you more now. Go be professional. The lobby was all clean lines and expensive furniture. A receptionist who looked barely old enough to vote sat behind a curved desk made of something that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. Can I help you? Ethan Brooks. I'm here about the fleet maintenance contract. She checked her computer. Oh, yes. Miss Hale left instructions. She's in a meeting, but she wanted me to get you set up with facilities access. She handed him a badge on a lanyard. Wear this at all times. The fleet garage is building C around back. Tom Herrera is expecting you. He's the operations manager. Thanks. Building C was less impressive than the main facility. Concrete floor, metal walls, the smell of oil and exhaust that meant real work happened here. 6 bay doors, lifts, tool chests, a small office in the corner with windows that looked out over the garage floor. A man in his 50s stepped out of the office. He was built like he'd spent his life doing manual labor, broad shoulders, thick arms, hands that looked like they could crush walnuts. His face was weathered and skeptical. Brooks? That's me. Tom Herrera. They shook hands. Tom's grip was testing him, seeing if he'd flinch. Ethan didn't. So you're the miracle worker Hale keeps talking about. I fix cars. Wouldn't call it a miracle. We'll see. Tom walked toward the first bay. We've got 53 vehicles in rotation. Vans, trucks, couple sedans for the executives. Most of them are new enough they shouldn't need much, but We've been having issues. What kind of issues? Breakdowns, delayed maintenance, safety violations. Last month we failed a DOT inspection because 3 trucks had bad brakes. Tom's expression hardened. That reflects on me, on my team. I don't like looking incompetent. Who was handling maintenance before? Contract service. They'd come once a month, do the basics, leave. But they weren't invested. Didn't care if things actually got fixed or just passed inspection. Tom stopped in front of a white van. Miss Hale thinks you're different, thinks you'll actually give a damn. I'll do the job right. That's what the last guy said. They spent the next hour going through the fleet. Tom walked Ethan through each vehicle, explaining routes, common problems, the drivers who treated their vans like rental cars versus the ones who actually cared. Ethan took notes, asked questions, started building a mental map of what needed attention first. You know what you're doing, Tom said finally. It wasn't quite a compliment, more like a grudging acknowledgement. I've been fixing cars since I was 16, I see. Fixing cars and managing a fleet are different things. Yeah, but the basics are the same. Keep them running, keep them safe. Don't cut corners. Tom almost smiled. All right, let's see if you can back that up. Bay 3 needs an oil change and brake inspection. Straightforward. Show me what you've got. Ethan worked while Tom watched from the office. It felt like a test and probably was. He changed the oil, checked the brakes, front pads were at 30%, rears at 40%, inspected the tires, the belts, the fluid levels, everything he'd do for any customer. When he finished, Tom came down and looked over the work, checked the oil level, examined the brake pads Ethan had set aside. These had another month in them. Maybe. But why wait until they're grinding? Replace them now. You avoid an emergency stop situation later. Tom was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. You're hired. I thought I was already hired. Miss Hale hired you. I just decided not to make your life hell. Tom walked back toward the office. You'll be here Mondays and Wednesdays, full day, 7 to 4. Lunch is 30 minutes. Take it whenever. My team's got 5 guys. They handle the routine stuff. You handle the problems. Anything major, you run it by me first. What counts as major? Anything over 500 in parts. Anything that keeps a vehicle off the road more than 2 days. Anything DOT related. Tom sat down at his desk. And anything involving the executive vehicles. Those go through Miss Hale directly. She drives one of these? Black sedan, Audi, parks it in the executive lot. Tom pulled out a file. Maintenance schedule says it's due for service next week. 30,000-mile check. You'll handle it. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. He'd known he'd see Victoria eventually, but he'd somehow convinced himself it would be professional, distant, not personal. An oil change on her car felt personal. Problem? Tom asked. No, just wondering why I'm handling executive vehicles if you've got a team. Because Miss Hale specifically requested you, said she trusts your work. Tom's expression was unreadable. You two know each other? We met once. Must have made an impression. I let her sit at my table. Tom stared at him. That's it? That's it. And she gave you a 50-vehicle contract because you were polite? Apparently. Tom leaned back in his chair, studying Ethan like he was trying to solve a puzzle. You know what people say about Miss Hale? No. They say she's brilliant, ruthless, built this company from nothing while everyone said she'd fail. Doesn't make friends, doesn't make mistakes, doesn't let anyone close. Tom paused. But she hired you. That means something. It means she needs a mechanic. It means she sees something in you. Tom pulled out a maintenance log. Just don't screw it up. She's been through enough. Before Ethan could ask what that meant, the office phone rang. Tom answered, listened, his expression changing. Yeah, she's here. I'll send him up. He hung up and looked at Ethan. Miss Hale wants to see you. Main building, top floor, office suite. Receptionist will tell you where. Ethan's stomach dropped. Now? Now. The elevator to the top floor was glass on 3 sides, showing boulders spread out below. Ethan watched the city shrink as he rose, feeling like he was leaving solid ground behind. The top floor was all executive territory. Thick carpet, quiet. Offices with closed doors and assistants guarding entrances like dragons protecting treasure. At the end of the hall, a woman in her 40s sat at a desk that probably cost more than Ethan made in a month. Ethan Brooks? Yeah. Miss Hale is expecting you. Go right in. Victoria's office was twice the size of Ethan's apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the flat irons in the distance. The furniture was modern and expensive without being showy. A massive desk held 2 monitors, a laptop, and neat stacks of folders. Behind it, Victoria stood looking out the window, her back to the door. She was wearing a navy suit that fit like it had been made for her. Her hair was pulled back. She looked nothing like the woman who'd walked through a blizzard in ruined shoes. "Close the door," she said without turning around. Ethan did. "How was your first morning?" "Tom seems competent." "He is. He's also protective of his territory and skeptical of outsiders. The fact that he didn't throw you out means you passed the test." Victoria turned to face him. "Did you?" "Did I what?" "Pass. I changed oil and checked brakes. Nothing fancy." "Tom doesn't care about fancy. He cares about thorough." She walked to her desk, picked up a file. "He just sent me his evaluation. Says you know what you're doing. Says you might actually fix our problems instead of just managing them." "That's the job, isn't it?" "It should be. But most contractors do the minimum. You did more." Victoria set down the file. "Thank you." "For what?" "For taking this seriously. For showing up. For—" She stopped. "For saying yes." They stood there in the expensive silence of her office, and Ethan felt the distance between them like a physical thing. This wasn't Table 17. This wasn't 2 people talking honestly in the back of a ballroom. This was CEO and contractor, professional. Exactly what he'd said he wanted. So why did it feel wrong? "Is that all?" Ethan asked. Victoria hesitated. "No, I wanted to explain something about that night, about why I offered you this contract." "You already explained." "I gave you the professional reason, the one that makes sense on paper." She walked around the desk, closing some of the distance. "But the truth is, I haven't stopped thinking about that night, about the way you stood up when everyone else sat down, about the way you talked to me like I was a person instead of a title." Victoria said, "Let me finish." Her voice was steady, but there was something vulnerable underneath it. "I've spent 4 years building this company, 4 years proving I deserve to be here. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to be around someone who didn't want something from me. Until you. I'm working for you. That's wanting something. You're working for my company, not for me. There's a difference." She looked at him directly. "I'm not expecting anything from you except good work, but I wanted you to know that this—" She gestured at the office, the building, the world she'd built. "Gets lonely sometimes. And that night was the first time in years I didn't feel alone." Ethan didn't know what to say. Every instinct told him to back away, to keep this professional, to protect himself and Lily from getting tangled up in something complicated. But he remembered Victoria walking through a blizzard, remembered the exhaustion in her eyes, remembered the way she'd looked at him when he said she mattered. "I'm not good at this," he said finally. "At what?" "People. Relationships. Knowing what to do when someone actually gives a damn." He ran a hand through his hair. "My ex-wife left because I wasn't enough. Because my life was too small and my dreams were too ordinary. I'm still that person. Still small town, still limited." "You think that's a flaw, isn't it?" "No." Victoria's voice was firm. "It's honesty. It's knowing who you are and not apologizing for it. Do you know how rare that is? In your world, maybe. In any world." She sat down on the edge of her desk. Less CEO now. More like the woman at Table 17. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that we could be friends. Real friends. The kind who actually care about each other instead of what we can get from each other." "Is that allowed? CEO and contractor being friends?" "I make the rules, so yes." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "You're stubborn." "I prefer determined." "Same thing. Completely different." Victoria stood up. "Go back to work. Do the job you were hired to do." "But Ethan?" She waited until he met her eyes. "If you ever want to talk about anything, not work, just life, you have my number." He left her office feeling like he'd just agreed to something without knowing what. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. By the time he got back to Building C, it was almost noon and Tom was watching him with an expression that said he knew exactly where Ethan had been. "Everything okay?" Fine. She's intense, isn't she? Ethan thought about Victoria standing in her office, being vulnerable in a way that probably terrified her. Yeah, she is. Don't let it get to you. She's like that with everyone. Tom handed him a work order. Van 12 needs a transmission fluid change. Should keep you busy till lunch. The week fell into a rhythm. Mondays and Wednesdays in Boulder, working through the fleet. Oil changes, brake jobs, tire rotations. The occasional diagnosis that took longer than expected. Tom's team warmed up to him after the second week when Ethan fixed a problem with Van 7 that 3 other mechanics had missed. A cracked motor mount that was causing vibrations the driver had complained about for months. How'd you catch that? One of the guys asked. Listened. The vibration had a pattern. That usually means something's loose or cracked. The other mechanics just said it was normal wear. Then they weren't listening. Victoria kept her distance. Ethan would see her occasionally, walking through the parking lot, standing in the lobby talking to someone, once getting coffee in the break room at 6 in the morning when she thought no one else was there. They'd nod. Exchange brief hellos, keep it professional. But Ethan felt her watching sometimes, not in a creepy way. More like she was checking to make sure he was real, that the night at the gala hadn't been something she'd imagined. 3 weeks in, everything changed. Ethan was finishing up on a van when Tom came out of the office looking grim. We've got a problem. What kind? The kind that involves Westfield. Ethan's blood went cold. What about him? He's filed a complaint with the state. Says our fleet maintenance doesn't meet DOT standards. Says we're running unsafe vehicles. Inspectors coming tomorrow to check every single truck and van. Are we unsafe? We weren't before you got here. But 3 months ago? Tom's expression was hard. Yeah, we had problems. Problems the old contractor ignored. Problems that could have gotten us shut down if anyone had looked close enough. And Westfield knew about it. Westfield knows everything. He's got connections, people who owe him favors, and he's using them to come after Miss Hale however he can. Ethan felt anger burn hot in his chest. When's the inspection? Tomorrow, 8 a.m. If we fail, they can ground the entire fleet. That means no deliveries, no service calls. We'd lose millions in contracts. The company would... Tom stopped. It would be bad. How many vehicles have you checked so far? Maybe 30. You've done good work, but the ones you haven't gotten to yet, show me the list. They worked through the night. Tom called in his whole team. They pulled every vehicle that Ethan hadn't serviced yet and went through them with brutal efficiency. Brake pads, tire treads, fluid levels, lights, wipers, everything the inspector would check. Ethan found problems. A cracked windshield on Van 18. Worn ball joints on Truck 6. Brake lines on Van 23 that looked like they'd been installed during the Reagan administration. How the hell did the old contractor miss these? One of Tom's guys asked. They didn't look. They worked until 3 in the morning, fixed what they could, flagged what they couldn't. When the sun came up, they had 48 vehicles that would pass inspection and 5 that wouldn't. Tom looked like he'd aged a decade. 5 is too many. We'll pull them from service, tell the inspector they're already scheduled for repairs. That still leaves us short. We've got contracts, deliveries. If we can't fulfill them, Victoria's voice cut through the garage. Then we explain why. They turned. She was standing in the doorway, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair in a ponytail, looking nothing like the CEO in the expensive suit. Miss Hale, Tom started. You didn't need to... Yes, I did. She walked into the garage. This is my company. My responsibility. If Westfield wants a fight, he'll get one. The inspection's in 4 hours. I know. Tom called me at midnight. Victoria looked at the vehicles, at the team standing exhausted in the early morning light, at Ethan. How bad is it? 5 vehicles fail, the rest pass. Ethan wiped grease off his hands, but barely. If we'd waited another month, we would have had 20 failures instead of 5. That's on me. I should have addressed this sooner. Victoria's jaw tightened. But we're addressing it now. The inspector showed up at 8 sharp. A woman in her 50s with a clipboard and an expression that said she'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. She went through each vehicle methodically, checked lights, brakes, tires, steering, suspension, took notes, asked questions. Tom answered most of them. Victoria stood nearby, watching. Ethan stayed in the background, ready if they needed him. 3 hours later, the inspector finished. She gathered her notes and looked at Victoria. You've got 5 vehicles I'm flagging for immediate repair. They don't move until those issues are fixed and re-inspected. Understood. The rest pass. Barely. The inspector's expression softened slightly. But someone's been doing good work here. Whoever you hired in the last month knows what they're doing. Victoria glanced at Ethan. He does. Keep him, and next time someone files a complaint, maybe it won't have teeth. The inspector handed over her report. You've got 30 days to fix the flagged vehicles. I'll be back to verify. After she left, the garage exploded in relief. Tom's team high-fived. Someone opened a box of donuts that had been sitting in the office since yesterday. Victory felt thin but real. Victoria walked over to Ethan. You saved us. I did my job. You did more than that. You worked through the night to fix problems that weren't yours, problems that existed before you even got here. If I'd gotten here sooner, you got here exactly when you were supposed to. She lowered her voice. This was Westfield, wasn't it? This complaint. Tom said he has connections. He has more than connections. He has a vendetta. Victoria's expression hardened. He's been trying to destroy this company since my father died. Every contract, every deal, every hire. If there's a way to sabotage us, he finds it. Why? Because my father said no to him once. Because I won't bow. She looked at Ethan. Because people like Westfield can't stand it when someone builds something without their permission. Around them, the team was starting to disperse, heading home to sleep, to shower, to pretend they hadn't just spent 16 hours fighting to save their jobs. Come with me, Victoria said. Where? Somewhere quiet. I need coffee, and you look like you need to sit down before you fall down. They ended up in her office. Victoria made coffee in a machine that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. The sun was fully up now, boulders spread out below them in morning light. I'm sorry, she said, handing him a mug. For what? For dragging you into this, into my war with Westfield. If I'd known he'd come after the fleet, you would have what? Not hired me? Let your vehicles fall apart? Ethan shook his head. This isn't on you. It is, though. Everything Westfield does is because of me, because I won't sell, won't merge, won't let him turn Hale International into another piece of his empire. She sat down heavily. Some days I wonder if it's worth it, fighting this hard, losing this much. What would you do instead? I don't know. Sell, take the money, start something smaller, something he doesn't care enough to destroy. You don't mean that, don't I? Victoria looked at him. 4 years, Ethan. 4 years of 16-hour days and constant battles and watching everyone around me get hurt because I won't quit. My father built this company. Maybe he'd be disappointed that I can't hold it together. Or maybe he'd be proud that you're still fighting. She smiled sadly. You don't know that. No. But I know you didn't walk 3 miles through a blizzard because you're a quitter. They sat in silence. Outside, Boulder woke up. Traffic increased. People headed to jobs and lives and problems that probably felt overwhelming to them too. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. That night, at the gala, when you stood up. She set down her coffee. What were you thinking? Ethan thought back, to the ballroom, to Victoria being escorted out, to the choice he'd made without thinking. I was thinking that I'd been on the other side of it, being invisible, being disposable. And I was thinking that if one more person pretended not to see, then maybe being invisible was all you'd ever be. Victoria's eyes were wet, not crying, but close. Thank you, she said quietly, for seeing me. You're pretty hard to miss. She laughed, surprised, real. You're good at that. At what? Making me feel normal, like I'm just Victoria instead of the CEO everyone's either trying to impress or destroy. You are just Victoria. Not here. Here I'm the woman who inherited a company and spent 4 years proving she deserves it. Here I'm the target Westfield can't quite hit. Here I'm... She stopped. I'm tired, Ethan. I'm so tired of being strong. He wanted to tell her she didn't have to be. Wanted to say she could rest, could let someone else carry the weight for a while. But he knew that wasn't true. CEOs didn't get to rest. Single fathers didn't get to quit. People who carried responsibility didn't get days off just because they were exhausted. Then be tired, he said instead. Just for a minute. Nobody's watching. Victoria closed her eyes, breathed, let her shoulders drop, stopped performing strength. For 60 seconds, she was just a person who'd worked all night and fought too hard and didn't know if it was enough. Then she opened her eyes, and the CEO was back. I should let you go home, get some sleep. What about you? I've got meetings, calls, a company to run. She stood up. But thank you for last night, for this morning, for... She gestured vaguely. All of it. Ethan stood too. They were close enough that he could see the exhaustion she was hiding, the cracks in the armor she wore so well. Victoria. Yeah? You're going to be okay. This company. You. All of it. How do you know? Because you're stubborn, and because you care too much to quit. He smiled. And because you've got a pretty good mechanic making sure your fleet doesn't fall apart. She smiled back. Tired but real. Yeah, I do. Ethan left her office feeling like something had shifted. Not romantic, not professional, something in between, something that mattered. The drive home took forever. He stopped for gas in Idaho Springs and fell asleep in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Made it back to Garfield at noon and found Mrs. Chen and Lily making lunch in his kitchen. Daddy, Lily threw her arms around him. Mrs. Chen said you worked all night. Just a long day, kiddo. You smell like a garage. That's because I was in a garage. Mrs. Chen looked him over with the critical eye of someone who'd raised 4 kids and knew when someone was running on fumes. Sit, eat, then sleep. I'm fine. Sit. He sat. They ate grilled cheese and tomato soup. Lily talked about school, about her friend Emma's birthday party next week, about the book she was reading about Mars. Normal life. Simple life. The life Ethan had built that didn't involve billionaires or inspections or wars he didn't start. After lunch, Lily went to her room to read. Mrs. Chen stayed behind, washing dishes with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. This new job, she said. It's good? It's fine. And the woman? The one you met? Ethan should have known Mrs. Chen would circle back to that. What about her? Is she good? She's my employer, Mrs. Chen. That's not what I asked. She turned to look at him. Is she good? For you? For Lily? It's not like that. Isn't it? No, it's professional. Just work. Mrs. Chen smiled like she knew something he didn't. We'll see. Ethan went to bed at 2 in the afternoon and didn't wake up until Lily climbed into bed with him at 7, shaking his shoulder. Daddy, your phone keeps buzzing. He grabbed it off the nightstand. 3 missed calls from Tom. 2 texts from Victoria. Everything okay? Lily asked. Ethan read the texts. His stomach dropped. I need to make a call. Go finish your homework. But now, Lily. She left, looking worried. Ethan called Victoria back. She answered immediately. Westfield bought out our biggest contractor, she said without preamble. Effective immediately. That's 40% of our revenue. Gone. Can he do that? He just did. Her voice was tight, controlled. Emergency board meeting in an hour. I need to figure out how to keep this company alive. What can I do? Nothing. This isn't your problem. Victoria. Whoa. I'll call you tomorrow, after I know if I still have a company. She hung up. Ethan sat in his bed, phone in hand, feeling helpless, feeling like he'd just watched someone walk into a burning building and couldn't follow. Lily appeared in the doorway. Is she okay? I don't know. Do you like her? Lily. It's okay if you do. I just want to know. Ethan looked at his daughter, at her honest eyes and her brave face and her heart that wanted him to be happy even though her mother had left. Yeah, he said. I think I do. Then you should help her. I'm a mechanic, kiddo. I can't fix this. Maybe not, but you can be there. That's what friends do. Ethan pulled Lily into a hug, felt her small arms around him, felt the weight of every decision pressing down. Then he made another choice without thinking it through. He got dressed, grabbed his keys, and headed for Denver. Mrs. Chen didn't ask questions when Ethan told her he needed to leave. She just nodded, kissed Lily's forehead, and said she'd stay as long as necessary. Lily hugged him tight at the door. Be careful, Daddy. Always am. And tell her, Lily paused, thinking. Tell her she's not alone. Ethan's throat tightened. I will. The drive to Denver felt longer than it should have. Traffic was light, but Ethan's mind was racing, running through everything he knew about Victoria's situation and coming up empty on solutions. He was a mechanic. He fixed engines and transmissions and brake systems. He didn't know anything about corporate warfare or hostile takeovers, or how to fight someone like Westfield who had unlimited resources and no conscience. But Lily was right. Sometimes showing up mattered more than having answers. The Hale International building in downtown Denver was different from the Boulder facility. Taller, more glass, more statement. The lobby was empty except for a security guard who looked up when Ethan walked in. Building's closed, sir. I'm here to see Victoria Hale. The guard checked his computer. You on the list? No, but tell her Ethan Brooks is here. She'll know who I am. The guard looked skeptical but made the call, spoke quietly into his phone. His eyebrows went up. Okay, yes ma'am. He hung up and pointed to the elevators. 12th floor, she's waiting. The elevator ride up gave Ethan time to second-guess everything. What was he doing here? What could he possibly say that would help? Victoria had a board meeting, lawyers, people who actually understood business. She didn't need a mechanic showing up like some kind of white knight who couldn't even find the dragon. The elevator opened directly into a conference room. 6 people sat around a massive table. Ethan recognized Victoria immediately. She was at the head, still in the jeans and t-shirt from this morning, her hair still in a ponytail. The others were older, wearing suits, looking like they'd been pulled from expensive dinners or quiet evenings at home. Board members. The people who actually owned pieces of the company Victoria ran. They all turned to stare at Ethan. Victoria stood up. Excuse me for a moment. She walked to Ethan, her expression unreadable. When she spoke, her voice was low enough that the board couldn't hear. What are you doing here? I don't know. Lily said I should come. Your 8-year-old daughter sent you? She's smart. Smarter than me. Ethan glanced at the board members, pretending not to watch. How bad is it? Westfield bought Patterson Industries. That's our biggest client. $42 million in annual revenue. Without them, She stopped. We're in trouble. Real trouble. What does the board want to do? Half of them want to sell. Accept Westfield's standing offer, take the payout, walk away. The other half want to fight, find new clients, cut costs, restructure. Victoria's jaw tightened. Neither option is good. Selling means Westfield wins. Fighting means risking everything on the chance we can survive long enough to replace that revenue. What do you want to do? I want to burn Westfield's entire empire to the ground. She said it flatly, honestly. But that's not a business strategy. One of the board members cleared his throat. Miss Hale, we need to continue. Victoria looked at Ethan. You should go. You don't need to be here for this. Do you want me to leave? She hesitated. No. Then I'll stay. Ethan, this is a board meeting. It's not, I'll wait in the hallway, but I'm not leaving. He met her eyes. You're not doing this alone. Something cracked in her expression. Just for a second, the CEO disappeared and he saw the woman underneath, tired, scared, grateful. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She went back to the table. Ethan found a chair outside the conference room and sat down. Through the glass walls, he could see them talking. Victoria standing at the head of the table, her posture straight despite the exhaustion. The board members arguing, their voices rising and falling in rhythms Ethan couldn't quite hear. An hour passed. Then 2. Ethan checked his phone. Lily had texted him a photo of her homework, all finished, proud smile, and a message from Mrs. Chen saying she'd put Lily to bed and would stay until Ethan got home. At 10 o'clock, the conference room door opened. The board members filed out, their expressions ranging from angry to resigned. None of them looked at Ethan. The last one out was an older man, maybe 70, with white hair and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. He stopped in front of Ethan. You're the mechanic. Yes, sir. She talked about you. During the meeting, said you saved the fleet inspection, said Westfield tried to destroy us and you stopped him. I just did my job. No, you did more than that. The old man studied Ethan with sharp eyes. My name is Robert Chen. I was William Hale's business partner for 30 years. Watched Victoria grow up. Watched her take over this company when her father died. He paused. She's fighting a war she can't win, not alone. Not against someone like Westfield who's got unlimited resources and no soul. Then help her. I am. I voted to fight, to keep the company independent, but 3 other board members voted to sell. It's a tie. Robert's expression was grim. Victoria has the deciding vote, but if she chooses to fight and we fail, she loses everything. Her inheritance, her father's legacy, everything she's built. And if she sells, Westfield gets what he wanted all along: control, power, the satisfaction of destroying what William built because William had the audacity to tell him no. Robert put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. She's going to need someone who cares about her, not just the company. Someone who'll still be there if everything falls apart. Can you be that person? I'm just a mechanic. That's not what I asked. Ethan thought about Victoria at the gala, about the way she'd walked through a blizzard because she'd made a commitment, about the exhaustion in her eyes when she'd said she was tired of being strong. Yeah, he said, I can be that person. Robert nodded. Good, because she's about to make the hardest decision of her life. He left. The hallway went quiet. Through the glass, Ethan could see Victoria alone at the conference table, her head in her hands. He walked in without knocking. She looked up and he saw tears on her face. Not many, just enough to show she was human. They tied, she said. 3 votes to sell, 3 votes to fight. I have to decide. Ethan sat down next to her. What do you want to do? I don't know. If I sell, I lose the company, but everyone keeps their jobs. The contractors keep their contracts. 300 employees don't have to worry about whether they'll have work next month. Victoria wiped her eyes. But Westfield wins. He gets to destroy what my father built, and I have to live with that. And if you fight? If I fight, I'm betting everything on a maybe. Maybe we find new clients. Maybe we survive long enough to replace Patterson's revenue. Maybe Westfield doesn't find another way to sabotage us. She laughed bitterly. A lot of maybes for 300 people's livelihoods. What would your father do? He'd fight. He'd tell me that you don't build something worth having by backing down every time someone threatens you. Victoria looked at Ethan. But my father also died at 58 from a heart attack brought on by stress, by working 16-hour days and fighting battles that never ended. Is that what I want? To die young defending something that might not even survive me? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said something he'd been thinking since the gala. When Sarah left, I had a choice. I could have followed her to Seattle, changed my life, become whoever she needed me to be. Or I could stay in Garfield and be myself. He looked down at his hands, mechanic's hands, scarred and stained and honest. I chose to stay. And for 3 years, I've wondered if that was the right call. If I gave up something good because I was too stubborn to change. Did you? I don't know, but I know this. I can look at Lily and tell her I didn't compromise who I was, just to keep someone who didn't really want me. That matters. More than I thought it would. Victoria was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. You think I should fight? I think you should do whatever lets you look at yourself in the mirror. Ethan leaned back. But if you're asking what I'd do, yeah, I'd fight. Because people like Westfield count on everyone else being too tired or too scared or too practical to stand up, and the world gets worse every time they're right. Even if fighting means losing everything? Especially then, because at least you'd lose it on your terms. They sat in silence. Outside the window, Denver spread out in lights. Thousands of people living their lives, completely unaware that 12 floors up, someone was deciding whether to surrender or risk everything. Victoria stood up, walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the glass. My father used to bring me here when I was a kid, before Hale International was anything real. Just an idea and a dream and way too much debt. She smiled at the memory. He'd stand right here and point at the city and say, one day, Victoria, one day everyone down there will know what we built, and they'll know we did it the right way. Did he? Build it the right way? Yeah, he turned down shortcuts, refused bribes, wouldn't compromise his standards even when it would have made everything easier. Victoria turned to face Ethan. He died defending those principles, And I've spent 4 years trying to honor them, but I'm so tired of fighting. Then stop. She looked surprised. What? Stop fighting. Sell the company. Take the money. Walk away. Ethan stood up. I'm serious. If you're done, be done. There's no shame in knowing when to quit. You just said I should fight. No, I said you should do what lets you look at yourself in the mirror. If that's selling, then sell. But don't do it because you're tired. Don't do it because Westfield's a bully. Do it because it's actually what you want. Victoria stared at him. You're the worst motivational speaker. I'm not trying to motivate you. I'm trying to make sure you don't regret this for the rest of your life. And if I regret it either way, then at least you'll know you made the choice instead of letting someone else make it for you. She was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Robert? It's Victoria. Tell the board I've made my decision. She paused. We fight. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. You sure? Ethan asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Victoria walked back to the table, started gathering papers. We've got maybe 4 months before the loss of Patterson's contract starts really hurting us. 4 months to find new clients, cut costs, prove we can survive without them. What do you need? A miracle. Or a plan. Preferably both. She stopped organizing papers and looked at him. Why are you really here, Ethan? I told you. Lily said, I know what Lily said. But you drove 90 minutes because your daughter told you to? There's more to it than that. Ethan thought about lying, about keeping it safe and professional and distant. He told the truth instead. Because that night at the gala, you were the first person in 3 years who made me feel like maybe I wasn't as small as I thought. Like maybe my life wasn't as limited as Sarah said it was. He met her eyes. And tonight you needed someone who'd show up without calculating what they'd get out of it. So I showed up. Victoria set down the papers, crossed the space between them, stood close enough that he could see the exhaustion and fear and gratitude all mixed together in her expression. Thank you, she said quietly, for seeing me, for showing up, for, her voice caught, for making me feel like I'm not fighting alone. You're not. I know, but it's been a long time since I believed that. They stood there in the empty conference room, and Ethan felt something shift between them, something that went beyond professional courtesy or casual friendship, something that felt dangerous and necessary at the same time. Victoria's phone rang. She checked it, sighed. My assistant, probably wondering where I am. It's almost 11. You should go home. I should stay, work through the night, start making calls, figure out how to save this company. Or you could sleep, start fresh tomorrow. I don't have time to sleep. You don't have time not to. Ethan picked up her coat from the back of a chair. Come on, I'll walk you out. They rode the elevator down in silence. The lobby was empty except for the security guard who nodded as they passed. Outside, the Denver night was cold and clear. Victoria's car, the black Audi, sat alone in the executive parking lot. Where are you parked? She asked. Visitor lot, other side of the building. I'll give you a ride. It's 50 yards. Humor me. They got in her car. It smelled like leather and expensive air freshener. The engine was quiet, smooth. Ethan thought about all the vehicles he'd worked on in the Boulder facility, thought about how Victoria's car was due for service next week, and how that had seemed personal before but now felt like just another part of knowing her. She drove around the building, pulled up next to his Tacoma, didn't turn off the engine. Thank you for coming, she said, for staying, for talking me into doing something that might destroy everything I've built. I didn't talk you into anything. You made the choice. Because you reminded me why it mattered. Victoria looked at him. Can I ask you something? Sure. If this all falls apart, if Westfield wins and I lose the company and everything goes to hell, will you? She stopped, started again. Will you still be here? Ethan thought about Robert's question, about being the person who stayed when everything fell apart. Yeah, he said, I'll still be here. Why? Because you're not just the CEO of Hale International, you're Victoria, the woman who walked through a blizzard, the person who's too stubborn to quit even when quitting makes sense. He smiled. And because someone needs to make sure you actually sleep occasionally. She laughed, tired but real. You're very bossy for a mechanic. You're very stubborn for a CEO. I know. They sat in the idling car, and Ethan knew he should get out. Should say goodnight and drive home and keep this professional. Keep it safe. Instead, he said, "Have you eaten today?" "I had coffee this morning." "That's not food." "We've had this conversation before." And I was right then, too. Ethan checked his phone. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Open 24 hours, nothing fancy. But the food's good and it's quiet." "Ethan, it's almost midnight. You're not going to sleep anyway. Might as well eat." Victoria was quiet for a moment, then she shifted the car into gear. "What's it called?" "Murphy's on Colfax." Murphy's Diner looked like it had been there since the 70s and hadn't seen a renovation since. Red vinyl booths, linoleum floors, a counter with stools where night shift workers and insomniacs sat nursing coffee and pie. The waitress who greeted them looked like she'd been working there since the place opened. "2?" She grabbed menus without waiting for an answer. They slid into a booth in the back. The menu was laminated and sticky. The table wobbled. Somewhere in the kitchen, a radio played classic rock at low volume. Victoria looked around like she'd just landed on another planet. "When's the last time you were somewhere this normal?" "Define normal." "Cheap coffee, vinyl booths, menus with pictures of the food." She thought about it. "College, maybe. Before Hale International became my entire life." The waitress returned. "What can I get you?" "Coffee," Victoria said. And she looked at the menu. "What's good?" "Everything's good, but the burger's best. Comes with fries." "I'll have that." "Same," Ethan said. The waitress left. Victoria wrapped her hands around the coffee mug when it arrived, like she needed the warmth. "I used to do this with my father. After long days at the office, we'd find some hole-in-the-wall diner and just..." She smiled at the memory. "We'd just sit, not talk about work, not plan strategy, just be 2 people eating burgers." "You miss him." "Every day. He was brilliant, driven, but he also knew how to stop, how to remember that there was more to life than the next deal." Victoria took a sip of coffee. "I don't think I've learned that yet." "You're here now because you dragged me here. You could have said no. I've been saying no to everything except work for 4 years. Maybe it's time I stopped." The food arrived. The burgers were massive, messy, perfect. They ate in comfortable silence while the diner hummed around them, a couple arguing quietly in the next booth, a trucker at the counter scrolling through his phone, a waitress refilling coffee cups with practiced efficiency. Normal life. The kind Victoria had left behind somewhere between college and CEO. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said. "Yeah. I'm scared about tomorrow, about the next 4 months, about whether I just made the biggest mistake of my life." She set down her burger. "But sitting here right now, I don't feel scared. I feel normal? No. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She looked at him. "Does that make sense?" "Yeah, it does." They finished eating, split the check despite Victoria's protest that she could expense it, walked back to her car through the cold Denver night. "Thank you," Victoria said when they reached her Audi, "for tonight, for showing up, for reminding me that I'm not just a company that needs saving. You're not. You're a person who's fighting for something that matters. I hope you're right." "I am, but you won't believe me until you win." She smiled. "Probably not." Ethan got in his truck and followed Victoria's taillights until she turned toward Cherry Creek, and he turned toward the highway. The drive back to Garfield was long and dark, and gave him too much time to think. About Victoria making impossible choices, about Westfield trying to destroy everything she'd built, about the fact that Ethan had somehow gone from letting a stranger sit at his table to driving 90 minutes in the middle of the night because she needed someone who'd show up. He got home at 2 a.m. Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch again. Ethan covered her with a blanket, checked on Lily, still asleep, still peaceful, and collapsed into his own bed. His phone buzzed. "Victoria. I'm home. Thank you again for everything." He typed back, "Get some sleep." "You too. See you Monday?" "Monday." He set his phone down and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in Denver, Victoria was probably still awake, still working, still fighting a war that might destroy her. And somehow, Ethan had become part of it. The next 4 weeks were brutal. Victoria threw everything into finding new clients. Ethan heard about it through Tom, who heard about it from the office gossip network. She was traveling constantly, making pitches, taking meetings, working 18-hour days trying to replace the revenue Westfield had stolen. Ethan kept working on the fleet, Mondays and Wednesdays in Boulder, maintaining vehicles and trying not to think about the fact that every van he fixed might be pointless if the company didn't survive. He saw Victoria occasionally, brief moments in parking lots or hallways. She always looked tired, always looked like she was running on coffee and determination and nothing else. "You okay?" he asked one morning when he found her in the Boulder garage at 6 a.m. "Fine. Just needed to check something." She was looking at her Audi like it had personally offended her. "What's wrong?" "Check engine light came on yesterday. I don't have time to deal with it, but I also can't afford to have my car die in the middle of nowhere." "Pop the hood." She did. Ethan spent 10 minutes checking connections, running diagnostics with a scanner he kept in his toolbox, found the problem, a loose oxygen sensor, and fixed it in 5 minutes. "All set." Victoria looked at him. "That's it?" "That's it. Just needed to be tightened. I was going to take it to a dealer. They would have charged me $200. Probably. But they would have also tried to sell you services you don't need." Ethan closed the hood. "This is fine. Just check the light again in a few days. If it comes back on, we'll dig deeper." "Thank you." She paused. "How's Lily?" "Good. Obsessed with tide pools now. Wants to be a marine biologist." "What happened to astronaut?" "That was last month. This month is ocean life." Victoria smiled. "She sounds amazing." "She is. Exhausting, but amazing. I'd like to meet her, someday, if that's—" She stopped. "If you'd be okay with that." Ethan's chest did something complicated. The idea of Victoria meeting Lily felt significant, like crossing a line from professional to something else. "Yeah," he said. "I think Lily would like that." "Good." Victoria checked her watch. "I've got a meeting in 30 minutes, but Ethan?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you're here. Not just for the cars, for—" She gestured vaguely. "For all of it." She left before he could respond. Tom appeared from the office. "You two done making eyes at each other? Because we've got actual work to do." "We weren't." "Sure you weren't." Tom handed him a work order. "Van 18 needs a coolant flush. Try to keep your mind on the job instead of on the CEO." 2 weeks later, everything changed again. Ethan was home having dinner with Lily when his phone rang. Victoria. Her voice was different, higher, excited. "We got one." "Got what?" "A client, major contract. Denver Metro Transit wants to outsource their fleet management. $30 million over 3 years. If we get it—" She laughed. "If we get it, we replace most of what we lost from Patterson." "That's great. There's a presentation next week. Final pitch. Me against 2 other companies." Her excitement faded slightly. "One of them is Westfield's firm." "Of course it is. But we've got a real shot. A real chance to prove we can survive this. To prove—" Her voice caught. "To prove my father's company doesn't die because some vindictive billionaire can't handle being told no. You're going to kill it." "I hope so, because this is it. This is the moment that decides everything." After she hung up, Lily looked at Ethan with knowing eyes. "That was her." "Yeah." "She sounds happy." "She has a big meeting. Important one." "Are you going to be there?" "It's a business presentation, kiddo. I don't think mechanics are invited." Lily rolled her eyes. "You're so dumb sometimes." "Excuse me?" "She's your friend. Friends show up for important things. That's like rule number 1. I have work." "You have Mondays and Wednesdays in Boulder. When's the presentation?" "Wednesday." "Then you'll already be there, see? Easy." Lily went back to her spaghetti. "You're going." "I don't think Daddy, you drove to Denver in the middle of the night because I said you should. Now I'm saying you should be at her presentation. So you're going." Ethan looked at his 8-year-old daughter and wondered when she'd gotten so smart and so bossy. "Fine. I'll go." "Good. Now can I have ice cream?" "You didn't finish your vegetables." "I ate half. That's not finished." "It's practically finished." "Practically doesn't count." She sighed dramatically, but ate the rest of her broccoli. Ethan watched her and felt the weight of every decision he'd made since that night at the gala, the choice to stand up, to offer Victoria a seat, to take the contract, to show up in Denver, to keep showing up. All of it had led here. To his daughter telling him to be there for someone who mattered. Wednesday arrived with clear skies and cold air. Ethan got to Boulder early, worked through his morning maintenance schedule, and at 1 o'clock walked into the main building wearing his cleanest work shirt and jeans without grease stains. The receptionist looked surprised. "Mr. Brooks? I'm here for Miss Hale's presentation." "I don't think—" She checked her computer. "Are you on the list?" "No, but I'm going anyway." She opened her mouth to argue. Then she saw something in his expression and just nodded. "Conference room B, 3rd floor." The presentation room was small, maybe 20 chairs facing a screen. Half were filled with people in suits, Denver Metro Transit officials, Ethan guessed. Victoria stood at the front reviewing notes, wearing a navy suit that made her look every inch the CEO. She saw Ethan walk in and stopped mid-sentence. He found a seat in the back. Tom was there too, along with a few other Hale International employees. Tom leaned over. "What are you doing here?" "Lily said I should come." "Your daughter's got good instincts." The presentation started. Victoria walked through Hale International's capabilities, their safety record, their fleet size, their maintenance protocols. She was professional, confident, prepared. But Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight shake in her hands when she changed slides, the exhaustion she was hiding behind competence. Then Westfield walked in. He didn't present, he just sat in the back, arms crossed, smiling that smile that said he'd already won. Victoria saw him, faltered, just for a second. Then she kept going. She finished her presentation, answered questions, thanked the Metro Transit officials for their time. They nodded politely, made non-committal noises, said they'd make a decision within the week. After they left, Westfield approached Victoria. Ethan stood up instinctively. "Nice presentation," Westfield said. "Very thorough, very professional." "Thank you. Of course, you're fighting an uphill battle. Patterson was 40% of your revenue. You're bleeding money. In 6 months, you'll be desperate enough to accept whatever offer I make. Why not save yourself the trouble and sell now?" "Because the company's not for sale." "Everything's for sale, Victoria. It's just a question of price." Westfield's smile widened, in desperation. "I'm not desperate. Not yet. But you will be." He turned to leave, paused. "Oh, and Victoria? Tell your mechanic friend to stop glaring at me. It's unprofessional." He walked out. The room went quiet. Victoria stood there, shaking, not with fear, with rage. Ethan walked to the front. "You okay?" "No, I'm—" She stopped, breathed. "I hate him. I hate that he's right. We are desperate. We are bleeding money. And in 6 months I might have to sell just to keep everyone employed." "You don't know that." "Don't I? Even if we get this contract, it's barely enough. We're still vulnerable, still 1 bad quarter away from collapse." Victoria sat down heavily. "Maybe I should have sold. Maybe fighting was the wrong choice." "You don't believe that." "I don't know what I believe anymore." The room was emptying, Tom and the others filing out, giving them privacy. Ethan sat down next to Victoria. "When Lily was 5, Sarah left," he said. "For 2 months, I didn't know if she was coming back. Didn't know if I'd be raising Lily alone or if we'd be a family again." He looked down at his hands. "Every day I had to choose. Give up and fall apart, or keep going and hope it worked out." "Did it work out?" "Sarah didn't come back. But Lily and I, we survived. We built something, just the 2 of us." Ethan looked at Victoria. "You're in that same place. You don't know if this works out, but you keep going anyway, because that's what you do when something matters." Victoria's eyes were wet. "What if it's not enough?" "Then at least you'll know you tried everything, that you didn't give up just because some rich asshole tried to bully you into it." She laughed despite the tears. "You really don't like him." "I really don't." They sat in the empty conference room, and Ethan felt the weight of everything Victoria was carrying. The company, the employees, her father's legacy, the war she was fighting against someone who had more money, more power, more everything. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly, "for being here. It helped, more than you know." Lily made me. Your daughter's very wise. She wants to meet you, she's been asking. Victoria looked surprised. Really? Yeah. Says anyone who makes me drive to Denver in the middle of the night must be important. She sounds terrifying. She is, but in a good way. Ethan stood up. Come to dinner, this weekend. Nothing fancy, just pizza and an 8-year-old asking inappropriate questions. But I think you'd like her. Victoria smiled. I'd like that. Saturday, 6 o'clock? I'll be there. Ethan left her in the conference room, walked back to Building C, and tried to focus on work instead of the fact that he'd just invited Victoria Hale, CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, to have pizza in his tiny apartment with his daughter. Tom found him an hour later. You're an idiot. Why? Because you're falling for her. I'm not. Yes, you are. And she's falling for you. And this is either going to be the best thing that ever happened to both of you or a disaster that destroys everything. Tom leaned against the van Ethan was working on. But hey, at least it won't be boring. Ethan didn't argue, mostly because Tom was right. Saturday came too fast. Ethan cleaned the apartment twice, made Lily promise not to embarrass him, ordered pizza from the place that actually used real cheese instead of whatever the cheap place used. Victoria arrived at 6 sharp, wearing jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like a CEO and everything like a person who was nervous about making a good impression. Lily opened the door before Ethan could. Hi, I'm Lily. Are you Victoria? I am. It's nice to meet you, Lily. You're really pretty. Dad said you were pretty, but I thought he was exaggerating because he does that sometimes. Lily, Ethan started. What? It's true. You said Mrs. Patterson's cat was nice and it scratched me. Victoria laughed, real, unguarded. I promise not to scratch you. Good, come in. Daddy bought the expensive pizza because he's trying to impress you. I'm not. Ethan stopped. Okay, I am. But can you not say that out loud? Lily grinned and grabbed Victoria's hand. Come see my room. I have posters of the ocean, and Daddy says they're excessive, but I think they're educational. Victoria let herself be dragged down the hallway, and Ethan stood in the kitchen watching the most powerful person he knew get interrogated by an 8-year-old about whether dolphins were smarter than octopuses. Half an hour later, they sat around the small kitchen table eating pizza while Lily asked Victoria approximately 10,000 questions. What was it like being a CEO? Did she have an office with a view? Had she ever fired anyone? What kind of car did she drive? Did she know any famous people? Victoria answered every question patiently, honestly, like she was talking to an adult instead of a kid. Do you have kids? Lily asked. No, just me. Why not? Lily, Ethan warned. What? I'm just asking, Victoria smiled. It's okay. I don't have kids because I've been focused on building my company. Maybe someday. You should. You'd be a good mom. How do you know? Because you came to dinner even though you're probably super busy. That's what parents do. They show up even when they're tired. Victoria's expression softened. You're very smart, Lily. I know. Daddy says I get it from him, but I think I'm smarter than he is. I'm right here, Ethan said. I know, which is why I'm being nice. After dinner, Lily convinced Victoria to watch a documentary about coral reefs. They sat on the couch, Lily in the middle, Ethan on one side, Victoria on the other, and watched fish swim across the TV screen while Lily provided running commentary about which species were her favorites and why. At 8:30, Lily started yawning. Bedtime, Ethan said. But I'm not tired. Yes, you are. Go brush your teeth. Lily hugged Victoria before she left. You should come back. Daddy's happier when you're here. Lily, it's true. Don't argue with me. I'm 8. She disappeared into the bathroom. Ethan and Victoria sat on the couch in suddenly awkward silence. I'm sorry, Ethan said. She's wonderful. She's wonderful. Victoria looked at him. And she's right. You are happier. Am I? Yeah, you smile more. Your shoulders aren't always up around your ears. You look... She paused. You look like you're not just surviving anymore. Ethan thought about that, about the last 3 years, about getting through each day without falling apart, about building a life that worked but never quite felt complete. Maybe I'm not, he said. They sat in comfortable silence while Lily brushed her teeth. When she came out, Ethan tucked her in, listened to her talk about her favorite parts of the evening, kissed her forehead. I like her, Lily whispered. I know. Do you like her? Yeah, kiddo, I do. Then don't mess it up. I'll try. When he came back to the living room, Victoria was looking at the photos on his wall. Lily as a baby. Lily's first day of school. Lily and Ethan at the beach 2 summers ago, both of them sunburned and happy. You're a good father, Victoria said. I'm a work in progress. Aren't we all? She turned to face him. Thank you for tonight, for letting me into your life, into Lily's life. It means more than you know. She's been bugging me to invite you for weeks. Still, you could have said no, could have kept this professional, but you didn't. They were standing close enough that Ethan could see the exhaustion in her eyes, could see the weight she carried that looked exactly like the weight he carried. Different responsibilities, same burden. Victoria, I got the contract. Ethan stopped. What? Denver Metro Transit called this afternoon. We got it. $30 million over 3 years. She smiled, but her eyes were wet. We did it. We're going to survive. That's incredible. I know. I should be celebrating, opening champagne, calling the board. But all I could think about was coming here, being with you and Lily, being somewhere that feels... She stopped. That feels like home. Ethan didn't plan it, didn't think, just pulled her into a hug. Victoria wrapped her arms around him and held on like she was drowning, and he was the only solid thing in the world. He felt her shake, felt her breathe, felt 4 years of fighting and fear and exhaustion pour out in the safety of someone who wouldn't judge. You did it, he said quietly. You saved it. We did it. You, Tom, everyone who kept showing up when it would have been easier to quit. She pulled back slightly, looked up at him. I couldn't have done this without you. You could have, but I'm glad I was here anyway. They stood in his tiny living room, holding each other, and Ethan knew something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't professional anymore, wasn't casual friendship. This was real, complicated, terrifying. Victoria must have felt it too because she stepped back, putting careful distance between them. I should go. It's late and you have work tomorrow. Yeah, okay. She gathered her coat. Ethan walked her to the door. Thank you, she said again, for everything. Any time. She paused in the doorway. Ethan, that thing Lily said, about you being happier when I'm here? Yeah? I'm happier when I'm here too. She left before he could respond. Ethan stood in the doorway watching her drive away, feeling like he'd just jumped off something high without checking if there was water below. In her room, Lily called out, Did you mess it up? Go to sleep, Lily. That's not an answer. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. You're terrible at this. Ethan smiled despite everything and went to bed. His phone buzzed. Victoria. Thank you for tonight, for Lily, for being the person who shows up, for being you. He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Congratulations on the contract. You earned it. We earned it. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm glad I walked into that gala. Glad security tried to throw me out. Glad you were sitting at table 17. Ethan's chest tightened. Me too. He set down the phone and stared at the ceiling, knowing that whatever came next, whether this worked or fell apart, he'd already made his choice. He was all in. The weeks after the Metro Transit contract should have been easier. Victoria had her victory. The company was stable. Westfield's attempt to destroy Hale International had failed, at least for now. But Ethan noticed she wasn't celebrating. She was working harder than ever, like she was trying to outrun something that kept pace no matter how fast she moved. He saw it on Wednesdays when he arrived at the Boulder facility. Her car would already be there at 6 in the morning. Her office lights would still be on when he left at 4. Tom mentioned she'd been sleeping in the executive suite some nights, too exhausted to drive home. Someone needs to tell her to slow down, Tom said one afternoon, before she burns out completely. Why don't you tell her? Because she's the CEO and I'm operations. She doesn't listen to me. Tom gave Ethan a pointed look. But she might listen to you. I'm just the mechanic. You're a lot more than that, and we both know it. Ethan didn't argue, because Tom was right. Whatever was between him and Victoria had stopped being just professional the moment she'd shown up at his apartment and hugged him like he was the only thing keeping her anchored to the world. He found her that evening in her office, staring at spreadsheets like they held the secrets of the universe. She didn't look up when he knocked. "Come in." "You're still here." Victoria glanced at her watch, surprised. "What time is it?" 7. "Most people went home 3 hours ago." "I'm not most people." She turned back to her computer. "I'm running projections for next quarter. If we can maintain current growth rates and keep costs controlled, Victoria, we might actually be able to expand into Wyoming. There's a market there that—" "Victoria." Ethan walked to her desk. "When's the last time you ate?" She waved vaguely at a protein bar wrapper. "Lunch." "That was breakfast. It's 7 p.m. "I'm fine." "You're not. You're running on empty and telling yourself it's fine because the company's surviving." Ethan sat down across from her. "But what happens when you collapse? Who runs Hale International then?" "I'm not going to collapse. Your father worked himself to death at 58. You said so yourself." Victoria's expression shuddered. "That's different." "How?" "Because I'm—" She stopped. Started again. "Because I have to. The Metro Transit contract saved us, but we're still vulnerable. Still one bad quarter away from serious trouble. I can't afford to slow down." "Even if it kills you?" "If it kills me, at least the company survives." Ethan felt anger flash hot in his chest. "You really believe that? That you're worth less than a company?" "It's not about worth. It's about responsibility. 300 people depend on me. Their mortgages, their kids' college funds, their futures. If I fail, if you die, they lose their jobs anyway, because dead people don't run companies very well." Victoria flinched like he'd slapped her. "I'm not—" Her voice cracked. "I'm not my father. I won't let this destroy me." "Then prove it. Come have dinner with me and Lily. Take one night off. Show me you actually know how to stop." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed her laptop. "Okay." "Okay?" "One night, but I'm working tomorrow." "It's Saturday." "So?" "So normal people don't work Saturdays." "I'm not normal people." She grabbed her coat. "Where are we going?" They picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's and drove to a Mexican place in Boulder that Lily had been begging to try. It was loud and crowded, and the kind of chaos that made it impossible to think about work or responsibility or anything except whether to get tacos or enchiladas. Lily ordered both and talked Victoria's ear off about the science fair project she was planning. Something involving ocean currents and plastic waste that Ethan only half understood but pretended to follow. "You could help," Lily told Victoria. "You run a company. You probably know about logistics." "What kind of logistics?" "How to get people to care about things they can't see, like plastic in the ocean. Nobody thinks about it until you make them look." Victoria smiled. "That's actually very true. In business, we call it messaging, making people understand why they should care. See? You could totally help." Lily turned to Ethan. "She's helping with my project." "I don't think—" Ethan started. "I'd love to," Victoria said. Lily beamed. Ethan's chest did that complicated thing again. After dinner, they walked through downtown Boulder. The streets were busy with college students and tourists, and people whose biggest problems were probably what bar to hit next. Normal problems. Regular life. Lily ran ahead to look at a street performer juggling fire. Victoria and Ethan walked slowly behind her. "Thank you," Victoria said, "for making me stop. I needed this." "You need to do it more often." "I know, but it's hard. Stopping feels like giving up. Like if I'm not working, I'm failing." "That's not stopping. That's living." Ethan watched Lily laugh at the juggler. "You can't spend your whole life fighting. Eventually you have to figure out what you're fighting for." "I know what I'm fighting for, the company, my father's legacy." "Is that really it? Or is it easier to fight than to figure out what comes after?" Victoria was quiet. They walked another block before she spoke. "After my father died, I threw myself into running Hale International because it was the only thing that made sense, the only way to honor him, to prove his death meant something." She stopped walking. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about him and started being about not failing, about proving I was good enough, smart enough, strong enough. To who? To everyone who said I wasn't. To Westfield. To the board members who voted to sell. To... She looked at Ethan. To myself. And are you? Good enough? I don't know. Every time I prove something, there's another test, another challenge, another person trying to tear down what I've built. Victoria's voice was tired. I'm exhausted, Ethan. I'm so tired of fighting. Then stop. I can't. Not forever. Just for tonight. Tomorrow, you can go back to being the CEO who never sleeps and works 18-hour days. But tonight, just be Victoria, the person who likes Mexican food and helps 8-year-olds with science projects. She looked at him with an expression that was equal parts gratitude and fear. What if I forget how to be just Victoria? Then I'll remind you. Lily came running back, excited about the juggler and already planning how she could incorporate fire into her science project. Ethan vetoed that immediately. Victoria laughed, and for a moment she looked younger, lighter, like the weight she carried had been set down, even if just temporarily. They drove back to Garfield as the sun set behind the mountains. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, her head against the window. Victoria rode in the passenger seat, quiet and thoughtful. Can I ask you something? She said as they crossed into Garfield County. Sure. When Sarah left, how did you know you'd be okay? Ethan thought about those first months, the panic, the fear, the absolute certainty that he was going to fail Lily because he didn't know how to be both parents. I didn't know. I just kept going because stopping wasn't an option, and eventually going became easier than it was at the start. He glanced at Victoria. Why? Because I'm afraid that if I stop fighting, if I let myself relax even for a minute, everything will fall apart, like I'm the only thing holding it all together. You probably are, but that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Don't I? Who else is going to... Me. Tom. Your team. The 300 people who show up every day because they believe in what you built. Ethan turned onto his street. You're not alone, Victoria. You just act like you are because it's safer than trusting people to stay. She was quiet for the rest of the drive. When they pulled up to his apartment, Lily woke up enough to hug Victoria goodnight and stumble inside with Mrs. Chen, who'd been waiting on the porch. Ethan walked Victoria to her car. The night was cold and clear, stars visible in a way they never were in Denver. I meant what I said, Ethan told her. You're not alone. I want to believe that. Then start. Stop treating everyone like they're going to leave the second things get hard. That's what people do, though. They leave. Victoria looked at him. Sarah left you. My father left me, even if he didn't mean to. Everyone leaves eventually. Not everyone. Lily's still here. Mrs. Chen keeps showing up even though I can barely pay her. Tom's been with your company for 12 years. Ethan stepped closer. I'm still here. For now. No, not for now. Just here. Period. He said it firmly. I'm not Sarah. I don't run when things get complicated. And this, he gestured between them. This is already complicated. But I'm still here. Victoria's eyes were wet. Why? Because that night at the gala, you reminded me what it feels like to matter to someone. To be seen as more than just a father or a mechanic or whatever role I'm supposed to fill. Ethan's voice softened. And I think I do the same for you. I see Victoria, not the CEO. The person, not the company. You do. She wiped her eyes. You make me feel like I'm enough just as I am, like I don't have to earn it. You don't. They stood in the cold, close enough to touch, but not touching, and Ethan felt the weight of everything unspoken between them. Victoria broke the silence. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in. I've spent 4 years building walls because it was safer than getting hurt. I know, I did the same thing after Sarah. Ethan took her hand. But maybe it's time we both stopped hiding. She looked at their joined hands. I'm scared. Me too. What if this doesn't work? What if we ruin the friendship we have? Then we ruin it, but at least we'll know we tried. Ethan squeezed her hand. I'm tired of being safe, Victoria. I'm tired of living small because I'm afraid of getting hurt again. You make me want to try anyway, even though it terrifies you. Especially because it terrifies me. Victoria stepped closer. Lily was right. You are happier when I'm around. Yeah, I am. I'm happier too. Happier than I've been in years, maybe ever. She looked up at him. I don't want to lose this. Lose you. Then don't. Stay. Not just tonight. Actually stay. I don't know if I know how. Neither do I. But we can figure it out together. She kissed him then, soft and tentative and honest, like she was testing whether this was real or just another thing that would disappoint her. Ethan kissed her back and felt something settle in his chest. Something that felt like coming home after a long journey. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. That was, yeah. We should probably talk about what this means for work, for Lily, for tomorrow. We'll talk about all of it tomorrow. Ethan brushed hair from her face. Tonight, let's just be two people who are tired of being alone. Okay? She kissed him again. Okay. Victoria left an hour later, after they'd sat in his truck talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. After she told him about her father, and he'd told her about the years after Sarah, after they'd stopped performing and just been honest. When Ethan walked back inside, Lily was waiting on the couch in her pajamas, trying to look like she hadn't been watching through the window. Don't even pretend you weren't spying. I wasn't spying. I was observing. Lily grinned. You kissed her. Go to bed. You're in love with her. Bed. Now. You're not denying it. Lily Marie Brooks. She laughed and ran to her room. Ethan followed, tucked her in, listened to her talk about how she knew this would happen and how she was clearly smarter than both of them. I like her, Daddy. Like, really like her. I know you do. And she likes us. I can tell. She looks at you the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. How's that? Like we're the best thing that ever happened to her. Lily yawned. Are you going to marry her? It's been one kiss, kiddo. Let's not plan the wedding. But eventually? Maybe. If she'll have me. If this actually works. Ethan kissed Lily's forehead. Get some sleep. I'm really happy, Daddy. You deserve to be happy too. I am happy. Have been for a while now. I know. But this is different happy. This is the kind where you smile without thinking about it. Ethan looked at his daughter and wondered how she'd gotten so wise. When did you grow up? I've been telling you, you just don't listen. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that felt both terrifying and right. Victoria still worked too much, but she started leaving the office at reasonable hours, started coming to Garfield on weekends, started being part of Ethan and Lily's life in ways that felt natural instead of forced. She helped Lily with her science project, ate dinner with them twice a week, showed up at Lily's school presentation, and clapped louder than anyone when Lily explained ocean currents using a kiddie pool and food coloring. At work, they kept it professional. Ethan maintained the fleet. Victoria ran the company. But everyone knew anyway. Tom gave Ethan constant grief about it. The Boulder team made knowing comments, and when Victoria's assistant saw them having lunch together in the break room, she just smiled and said it was about time. 2 months after their first kiss, Victoria showed up at Ethan's apartment on a Tuesday night looking shaken. What's wrong? Ethan asked immediately. Westfield made another move. He's filing a lawsuit, claims Hale International violated a non-compete agreement my father signed 20 years ago. Victoria sat down heavily at his kitchen table. It's garbage. The agreement expired a decade ago, but it'll tie us up in court for months, cost us hundreds of thousands in legal fees. Can you fight it? We'll win eventually, but that's not the point. The point is, he wants to bleed us dry, death by 1,000 cuts. She pressed her fingers to her temples. I'm so tired of this, of him, of fighting battles I shouldn't have to fight. Lily appeared in the doorway in her pajamas. Is everything okay? Yeah, kiddo, just grown-up stuff. Go back to bed. It's that mean man again, isn't it? The one who keeps trying to hurt Victoria's company? Victoria looked surprised. You told her about Westfield? She asked questions. I'm not going to lie to her. Lily walked over and hugged Victoria. You're going to beat him, because you're smarter and you work harder and you have us. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sweetheart. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you going to marry my dad? Lily! Ethan felt his face flush. What? It's a reasonable question. You're here all the time. You make him happy. I like you. Seems like marriage is the logical next step. Victoria laughed despite the tears. Your daughter is terrifyingly direct. She gets it from her mother. I do not. I get it from you. You're terrible at hiding your feelings. Lily looked at Victoria seriously. So are you? Am I what? Going to marry him? Victoria glanced at Ethan. He shrugged helplessly. There was no stopping Lily when she got like this. I don't know, Victoria said honestly. We haven't talked about it. Why not? Because it's complicated. I have a company. Your dad has a life here. I live in Denver. There are a lot of things to figure out. Those aren't complications. Those are just details. Lily yawned. You love each other. The rest is just logistics. And you're good at logistics. She went back to bed, leaving Ethan and Victoria sitting in stunned silence. She's terrifying, Victoria said finally. I know. She's also right. Ethan looked at Victoria, at the exhaustion and fear and hope all mixed together in her expression. About which part? All of it. I do love you. I have for a while now. I just didn't know how to say it. Ethan's chest tightened. Victoria, you don't have to say it back. I know this is fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But I wanted you to know. She stood up. I should go. Let you process. I love you too. She stopped, turned around. What? I love you. I've probably loved you since you walked through that blizzard. I just didn't let myself admit it because I was scared. Ethan crossed to her. But I'm done being scared. I'm done playing it safe. I love you, Victoria Hale. I love your stubbornness and your drive and the way you treat Lily like she matters. I love that you make me want to be better than I thought I could be. Victoria kissed him. Hard, desperate, like she'd been holding back and finally let go. When they broke apart, she was smiling. So what do we do now? I don't know. Figure it out as we go? That's terrifying. Yeah, but we'll do it together. They spent the rest of the night on his couch, talking about the future. About whether Victoria could run Hale International from Garfield part-time. About whether Ethan could expand his work to include more of Victoria's clients. About how to blend their lives without losing what made each of them who they were. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments about logistics and schedules and who would compromise what. But they talked through it honestly, and by the time Victoria left at midnight, they had the outline of a plan. The lawsuit from Westfield dragged on for 3 months. Every week brought new motions, new delays, new attempts to drain Hale International's resources. Victoria fought back with everything she had. Ethan stood beside her, reminding her to eat and sleep and remember that she was more than the battles she fought. Then, in late October, everything shifted. Westfield made a mistake, a small one. He filed a motion using information that wasn't public, information he shouldn't have had access to unless someone inside Hale International was feeding it to him. Victoria's lawyers caught it, traced it back to Westfield's team, proved corporate espionage. Not only did the lawsuit get thrown out, but Westfield's company faced sanctions, fines, and worst of all for someone like him, public humiliation. Victoria called Ethan from the courthouse. We won. Not just the lawsuit, everything. Westfield's been ordered to pay our legal fees and stay away from Hale International. It's over. Are you okay? She laughed. I'm free. For the first time in 4 years, I'm actually free. They celebrated that night at Murphy's Diner, the same place they'd gone after the board meeting. Same cheap coffee and massive burgers. But this time, Victoria wasn't fighting for survival. She was celebrating winning a war she'd been fighting since before they met. What are you going to do now? Ethan asked. I don't know. Run the company without constantly looking over my shoulder. Sleep past 5 a.m. Spend more time in Garfield. She smiled. Spend more time with you and Lily. She'd like that. She's already planning Thanksgiving and insisting you have to be there. I wouldn't miss it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. I've been thinking about what Lily said, about marriage. Ethan's heart jumped. Yeah? Not now. We're not ready, but someday. She squeezed his hand. I want someday with you, with both of you. I want the messy, complicated, beautiful life that comes with being part of a family. Even though it's terrifying, especially because it's terrifying, you taught me that. Taking the risk is better than playing it safe. Ethan smiled. Lily's going to say she called it. She did. Your daughter's insufferably smart. She gets it from me. She really doesn't. They laughed and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. something that felt like the future he'd stopped letting himself imagine after Sarah left. 3 months later, on a cold February morning, Victoria moved half her office to Garfield. Not permanently. She still needed to be in Denver for board meetings and major decisions, but enough that she could work from the small second bedroom in Ethan's apartment 2 days a week. Enough that Lily started calling her almost mom, and Victoria stopped correcting her. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments about work-life balance and whose turn it was to make dinner, and whether Lily's science projects were getting too ambitious. But they made it work because they'd both decided that being together was worth the complications. One Saturday in March, Ethan took Lily and Victoria to the auto shop. He'd been working on something in secret for weeks, and it was finally ready. "What is it?" Lily demanded. "You'll see." In the back bay sat a car covered by a tarp. Ethan pulled it off to reveal a restored 1967 Mustang, cherry red, perfect condition, the kind of car that belonged in magazines. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. "Ethan, it was your father's. Tom told me about it. How William used to work on it in his garage before Hale International got big. How he sold it to pay for startup costs." Ethan walked around the car. "I tracked it down 6 months ago. Bought it from a collector in Wyoming. Spent every spare hour restoring it." "You—" Victoria couldn't finish the sentence. She was crying too hard. Lily hugged her while Victoria stared at her father's car like it was a message from the past. "He'd be proud of you," Ethan said quietly. "Of what you built, of who you became, of how you fought to keep his dream alive. How did you—" Victoria wiped her eyes. "How did you know this would matter?" "Because everything matters when it's connected to the people we love. Your father built a company, but he also built this car. Both of them are part of who he was, part of who you are." Victoria kissed him there in the garage, with Lily cheering and the Mustang gleaming in the afternoon light. That night, after Lily went to bed, Victoria and Ethan sat on his couch drinking wine and talking about the future. "I've been thinking," Victoria said, "about Hale International, about my role." "Yeah? I'm going to step back. Not completely, but I'm promoting Tom to COO, giving him more authority. Trusting my team to handle things I've been trying to control myself." She looked at Ethan. "Because you were right. I can't spend my whole life fighting. Eventually, I have to figure out what comes after." "And what comes after?" "This. Us. Building something that matters outside of boardrooms and contracts." She smiled. "Maybe even having kids someday. If you're open to that." "You want more kids?" "I want everything I thought I couldn't have because I was too focused on work. I want lazy Sundays and family dinners and science projects that set off the smoke alarm." Victoria took his hand. "I want a life with you, the real kind. Not the kind where work comes first and everything else fights for scraps." Ethan pulled her closer. "Lily would lose her mind if she heard you say that." "Then let's tell her, tomorrow, as a family. We're not married. Not yet. But we will be, when we're ready. When it feels right." Victoria kissed him. "Is that okay?" "Yeah, it's more than okay." They sat in comfortable silence, and Ethan thought about the night at the gala, about how he'd stood up without thinking because someone needed help, about how that one choice had led here, to a life he never could have imagined but couldn't picture living without. The next morning, Lily burst into Ethan's room at 7 a.m. "Victoria's car is still here. Did she sleep over?" "Lily, in your room?" "We're adults. Gross, I don't want details." Lily covered her ears. Then she grinned. "But does this mean you're getting married?" Victoria appeared in the doorway wearing one of Ethan's shirts. "Is that okay with you?" "Are you kidding? I've been planning this since you showed up for pizza." Lily launched herself at Victoria. "Can I be in the wedding? Can I pick my dress? Can we have it at the shop because that's where Daddy fixed your dad's car and it would be symbolic?" "Slow down," Ethan started. "No slowing down. This is the best day ever." Lily looked between them. "You're happy, right? Both of you?" Ethan looked at Victoria, at the woman who'd walked through a blizzard and fought battles and never quit even when quitting made sense, at the person who'd reminded him that his life wasn't too small or too limited, that maybe ordinary wasn't the same as insufficient. "Yeah, kiddo, we're happy." "Good, because you deserve it, both of you." Lily hugged them tight. "Now can we have pancakes? I'm starving." They made pancakes together, Lily insisting on adding chocolate chips, Victoria trying to make them healthy with whole wheat flour, Ethan just trying to keep anything from burning. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. Later that week, Victoria took Ethan to the Hale International headquarters in Denver. Not for a meeting, not for work, just to show him something. She led him to the top floor, to a hallway he'd never seen before. On the wall hung photos. William Hale through the years, building the company, shaking hands with clients, standing next to the Mustang that Ethan had restored. Victoria stopped in front of a new photo she'd just hung. It showed her at the Metro Transit contract signing. But next to her, barely visible in the background, was Ethan. He was in his work clothes, grease still on his hands, clearly having just finished maintaining one of the fleet vehicles. "I almost cropped you out," Victoria said. "Kept it professional, just me and the clients. But then I realized," she touched the frame, "you're part of this story, part of what saved this company. And I don't want to hide that. Don't want to pretend I did it alone. You didn't need me. You would have won anyway. Maybe, but it would have been lonely. And I'm tired of doing things alone." Victoria took his hand. "My father built this company because he wanted to prove you could succeed without compromising your principles. I've spent 4 years trying to honor that, but I forgot the other part." "What part?" "That success without people you love to share it with is just expensive loneliness." She turned to face him. "You remind me that there's more to life than boardrooms and contracts. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is show up for the people who matter." Ethan pulled her close. "You showed up for me too, that night at the diner. Every time you drove to Garfield, even though you were exhausted. Every science project with Lily. You showed up." They stood in the hallway surrounded by photographs of a company built on principles and determination. And Ethan understood something fundamental about Victoria. She wasn't just fighting to preserve her father's legacy. She was fighting to prove that kindness and strength weren't opposites, that you could be successful without being ruthless. That building something that mattered meant building it the right way, even when the wrong way was easier. 6 months later, on a September afternoon warm enough to feel like summer, Ethan and Victoria got married in the Boulder facility garage. Not in the main building or some fancy venue. In Building C, surrounded by the vehicles Ethan maintained and the team that had become family. Lily was the maid of honor, wearing a dress she'd picked herself and carrying flowers she'd grown in Mrs. Chen's garden. Tom officiated, looking uncomfortable in a suit, but grinning the whole time. The entire Hale International team was there, along with Ethan's customers and half of Garfield. It was small and imperfect and absolutely them. When Tom asked if anyone objected, Lily loudly said, "If anyone objects, I will fight them," which got the biggest laugh of the day. Ethan and Victoria exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Victoria promised to actually sleep occasionally and to remember that some things mattered more than work. Ethan promised to keep reminding her when she forgot and to never stop showing up. "I was alone for so long," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "I built walls because it was safer than getting hurt. But you—" She looked at Ethan. "You showed me that walls don't protect you. They just keep out the people worth letting in. Thank you for being stubborn enough to climb over mine." "I was alone too," Ethan said. "After Sarah left, I convinced myself that small was safe. That if I didn't want anything bigger than my shop and my daughter, I couldn't be disappointed. But you showed me that wanting more isn't the same as being greedy. That letting someone in isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do." They kissed while everyone cheered. Lily threw flower petals everywhere. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears. And somewhere in Denver, Westfield probably choked on his expensive wine, which made the day even better. The reception was held in the parking lot with food trucks and string lights and music playing from someone's Bluetooth speaker. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. And that mattered more than any expensive venue ever could. Late in the evening, after most guests had left, Ethan found Victoria sitting in her father's Mustang. She was in her wedding dress, makeup smeared from happy tears, looking absolutely beautiful. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just thinking about my dad, wishing he could have been here." "I think he was, in his own way." "Yeah," Victoria smiled. "He would have liked you, would have appreciated that you're honest, that you don't care about status or money or any of the things most people care about. I care about you, and Lily, and having enough coffee in the morning." "See? Priorities. She patted the seat next to her. Come sit. They sat in the Mustang while the party wound down around them. Lily was dancing with Mrs. Chen. Tom was telling stories to anyone who'd listen. The Boulder team was taking selfies with the newlyweds' car. I never thought I'd get this, Victoria said quietly. A family. A partner who sees me as a person instead of a title. A daughter. She stopped, emotional. Lily told me yesterday that she wants to call me Mom, if that's okay with both of you. Ethan's throat tightened. What'd you say? I told her I'd be honored, that I've felt like her mom for months now. I just didn't know if I had the right to claim it. Victoria looked at him. Was that okay? Yeah, it's more than okay. Ethan took her hand. Sarah's still her mother. Nothing changes that. But you've been here, showing up, loving her, that matters. I do love her. So much it scares me sometimes. Welcome to parenting. It's terrifying. Victoria laughed. Good thing I have you to help me figure it out. They sat in the Mustang until Lily came running over, demanding they cut the cake before it melted in the heat. They climbed out and rejoined the celebration, and Ethan felt something settle deep in his chest. This was his life now. Not small, not limited, not playing it safe. This was choosing to show up, choosing to try, choosing to believe that sometimes the most extraordinary things come from ordinary moments where you do the right thing without calculating the cost. A year later, Victoria gave birth to a boy they named William after her father. He had Victoria's eyes, and what Ethan swore was already his stubborn personality. Lily was obsessed with her baby brother, constantly wanting to hold him and teach him things he was way too young to understand. He needs to know about ocean currents, Lily insisted. He's 3 months old, Ethan said. So? It's never too early to start learning. Victoria just laughed and let Lily explain marine biology to a baby who mostly just wanted to sleep and eat. Hale International continued to grow. Victoria balanced CEO responsibilities with being present for her family, finally learning that having both was possible if you were willing to let go of the illusion that you had to do everything alone. Tom ran operations with the same steady competence he'd always shown, and Ethan expanded his fleet maintenance to other companies, building something bigger than his small shop in Garfield while keeping his roots firmly planted there. They split their time between Garfield and Denver, never quite belonging fully to either place, but building a life that worked because they'd built it together. Some evenings, Ethan would find Victoria in the garage, sitting in the Mustang, talking to her father like he could hear her, telling him about the company, about her family, about how she'd finally learned to fight for what mattered without losing herself in the battle. You were right, she'd say to the empty air. Building something the right way is harder, takes longer, costs more. But it's worth it, because at the end, you have something that actually matters. And Ethan, watching from the doorway, would think about that night at the gala, about the choice to stand up when everyone else sat down, about how the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outward in ways you never expect. He'd been a mechanic from Garfield. She'd been a CEO from Denver. They shouldn't have worked, but they did, because they'd both been brave enough to try. Years later, when Lily was 16 and asking for college advice, when William was learning to read, when Victoria's hair was starting to show silver at the temples and Ethan's hands were permanently stained with grease no amount of scrubbing could remove, they'd sit together on their porch and talk about that night. What if you hadn't stood up, Victoria would ask. What if you just let security take me? Then I would have missed out on the best thing that ever happened to me, other than Lily. I'm right here, Lily would call from inside, and I can hear you. They'd laugh, and Victoria would take Ethan's hand and say what she'd said 1,000 times before. Thank you for seeing me, for showing up, for reminding me that I was never alone. And Ethan would say what he always said back. Thank you for walking through that blizzard, for being too stubborn to quit, for choosing us. Because that's what it came down to. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, just two imperfect people who kept choosing each other, every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The snow that had fallen the night of the gala had long since melted, but what had been built in its wake, the family, the love, the life they'd created together, that remained. Solid, real, lasting. Not because it was easy, but because they decided it was worth fighting for. And some things, Ethan had learned, are always worth the fight.